Welcome one and welcome all to local host Denver, where we've got Physgun Fireside Denver 2025. It's day 3. 8 teams from across the globe travelled here to Denver for this tournament, and only 3 of them survive. We've got Witness Australia and Witness EU playing in this game for the right to face the absolutely dominant G6 force waiting there in the grand final later on today. I'm joined by Sandblast, I'm joined by Marmaloo. How are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling great. It's going to be some amazing TF2 to watch. Going to watch my nation stand tall, win this tournament, make it easy. But we do have the Australians and the Europeans for probably about the 4th time rematching each other.
Yeah, I think they're sick of each other by now.
Yeah.
They wanted to play Froyo. I think a lot of them incentive was playing Froyo, and Europe kind of got robbed of that right. So maybe they're taking it out on Australia, who took that glory from them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Witness Gaming EU has been running away with it kind of convincingly most of these games against the Australians. So I want to see maybe if the Australians have a little bit more demo review time, especially going into day 3. They had that extra night. They definitely were not out drinking. I can confirm that for sure. So they were definitely locked in trying to win. So hopefully we see some new stuff coming out of them. I know we were critiquing the medics pretty hard yesterday between Otto and Lau, so hopefully, maybe if one of them, maybe Lau tightens up a little bit with his team.
Yeah, Lau was looking a lot better. I think Australia overall, showed some good things.
Big improvement. I would say, yeah, overall compared to the Euros, I think Lau had probably one of the better games between the two, for sure.
Yeah, definitely showing out, especially against Zilly. Zilly was struggling, and Lau was doing very well. But going into this matchup, I'm really excited to see, and I think we already have the maps, right?
We might have maps. What we do have is we have some rosters. We have some stats about these teams. So like you said, you said we were struggling before. We can find out. We do have some numbers taken from just this land exclusively. So no sandbag stats from playing against the Australians in online games. This is all about what they've done since they've got here. And I've got to say, I've been really impressed with the Australians and how it feels like every single map they play, they're becoming stronger and stronger. They're getting more confident. They're getting more used to playing together and playing on LAN, and it's honestly fantastic to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly just probably most impressed with Silva. I think his playmaking, his sniping, just the amount of impactful plays, especially against Froyo yesterday, that he was just kind of able to just kind of pull out of the bag, where he's getting clutch kills onto Hubada, or he's just in the right place at the right time. Kind of just the thorn in the side for most of these teams this LAN. I think that he's going to be a key member going in against the Europeans, and how the flank is going to kind of try and deal with him.
Yeah, they definitely lean on him a lot in all these stalemates. We really don't. I feel like we don't see that many sacks. A lot of times they go to the sniper, and it's all on Silvo. And at the end of the day, if the sniper can make moves happen, it's great. I've really have liked the soldiers as well. They really like this double soldier sack to mixed results. They get a force maybe, and then they just lose the point, which I'd love to see. But yeah, like you said, I think everyone really kind of started stepping up slowly. I think at first the scouts were already there, and then everyone else started kind of arriving, getting here, and getting more comfortable. And I think this should be a true matchup. Both these teams have played each other like 3 times. Yeah. They've had all night and all morning to demo review and really get this down.
Yeah, Down has been popping off in particular. So you've seen the soldiers. Some of those clips we've seen have been absolutely gorgeous. But I want to pull back to that for a second. You said obviously they're getting better and better and better. And yesterday, like that final game against the Bulls team, coming through into this low bracket final, they've broken the curse. But now they're facing the Europeans, who they faced yesterday, and I don't think it was too pretty.
It was not looking good.
Do we think, like, I don't know, this extra, they've had time to demo review, that they've maybe had time to look back? I know they were very busy yesterday. They had some long series. Do you think they've got more of a chance today than they did yesterday?
My main worry is the pick they've been leaning on, Snakewater. They were getting walked by
4-0.
Europeans. Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And that was the pick they relied on. So I'm curious to see if they're going to mix it up. Are we going to see like we were talking like Metalworks, maybe a Sunshine, something that's just different, because they're not picking any of the cots. So those are off the board, and that's one of the upset maps, or 2 of them.
So for what I've seen so far, mainly from the Australians, is they kind of start off pretty hot. And the Euros kind of start off slow. So like yesterday, what we saw in the best of 3 was a 2-1 slow burn, and as soon as the Europeans, got to map 2 on Gully Wash, they ran away with it. It wasn't even close. It was a 5-1. And I guess maybe that's just them warming up, getting kind of comfortable in their setups. So we'll see if Australia can kind of keep the same, momentum going in from map 1. Win or lose, try not to make it a map 2 where they kind of get rolled over like yesterday.
Yeah, but talking about the Europeans, let's see what their graphic looks like. Because I think going into this LAN, I think the general sentiment is that they were number one.
Yeah.
But after the games, we clearly see G6 is up there. And Europe has some ground to make up, and this is kind of their way to get some warm-up, get rolling, and Australia obviously wants to win as well.
The thing with what you're saying there is this is warm-up, which is kind of true in a sense, but like it's weird because obviously Witness they come here with the pure intention of winning. They were the favourites, some would say, coming into this. But now G6 have looked so good. They're thinking obviously ahead to the G6 game, but they can't think about it too much. They have another team to get by, and as we said, the Aussies could be a thorn. But Witness again, they've gradually ramped in. I don't think they've had as big of a ramp up. They were a bit of a slow starter, I think, on the best of one day. But by the time the best of ones were finishing up and they got into these playoff brackets, they were looking good. But that game against G6, I feel that's shown some weakness in Witness that we haven't seen, at least in Europe, for a lot of years.
Yeah, I think G6 definitely plays a similar style, not entirely the same, but they're more passive teams that kind of let the game come to them. And when you're playing that, if someone's just doing it better, it's really hard to make something happen. And so far, like, we've seen these players like Lucas has been nuts, and the rest of the team really just shining. But once they saw G6, it just looked like a different level was happening there. But with all that being said, you're 100% right. I think Froyo maybe was a victim of like looking ahead too far, or maybe they weren't ready for Ball's LAN team, where if Witness EU is just entirely focused on G6, Australia's no pushover.
Yeah, you cannot sleep on the Australians. Specifically for Witness Gaming EU, to me, I think that the explosive classes are probably some of the best we have at this LAN. I mean, Hugo and Poppy. Watching Hugo when they played against Froyotech, they found every possible opening imaginable to have some sort of impact. Lucas is one of the hardest hitting demos we have this lane. Obviously, with Habib bowing out at 5th place yesterday with Froyotech, it really just leaves, Lucas going up against Enrith, which I think Enrith is probably the most like rock solid, consistent demo at this lane. You know what he's doing every single time, and he's always a threat. You always got to be worried about his traps. Well, I think more Lucas and Logan have more star power. They have that X factor, like how Habib would play, where if he's alive, we saw yesterday against the Australians on process for a little bit before Froyo lost, Habib mind-controlled the server for probably about 12 minutes straight. And there was a last push where I don't know how Froyo lost it. It was either the first one or the second one where they just beefed one of their last pushes, where Habib literally flew in, killed the gun, sticky piped Enrith, killed him instantly, and found another kill, and they still lost the last push. That's just what Habib can do sometimes, and I think Logan and Lucas have that edge over Enrith, but Enrith is always going to be in the right place, right time.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, I think we were mentioning, like, Habib, he does that, but then sometimes too far forward, gets caught out. And I think Lucas can kind of be a victim of that same thing, where it is a lot riskier, where if Australia wants a game plan, the game plan should be take Lucas out. Once you get Lucas down, I think the rest of the game can kind of come to it.
Well, G6 showed the blueprint of that. G6 were on Lucas all the time. He was not allowed to play his game, and you saw the difference, right? They're almost, I wouldn't say they're toothless, but they lose one of their stars. Their biggest damage outputs are in almost every game. But yeah, not having him around, we saw fast rollouts landing in on Gully Watch and on Process, and I don't know, it's a bit of a blueprint. So Australians, if they're watching the demo, there's potentially something they can get at.
Yeah, as we start wrapping up, I'm curious if we have pick bans. I'd love to see that for just a quick final prediction before sending it off. But if we don't have them, we can just give a prediction right there.
I mean, mine's probably going to be 2-0 to the Euros. I mean, from what I've just been seeing, they've been kind of just a cut above the Aussies in just a little bit. Whether it's Lucas finding these kills, Tomas and Poppy finding amazing kills in the combo, I just think that they're going to edge them out a little bit individually. So I'm going to go 2-0 regardless of map picks. I think the only thing it might be a little crazy on might be Snakewater, but again, the Euros are super dominant on that. But again, Australia did have some great moments on Snakewater as well versus Froyo.
What are we thinking, Ben?
I think map for map, I think the game yesterday, I think despite the fact the Australians have looked better in their game against Froyo and against the Balls team, I think yesterday there was that big of a gap between the two teams. I think the Euros take this 2-0.
You know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to say 2-1, but we need to see something new. We cannot see the same map.
Oh, for sure.
I want to see Sunshine that look like Sunshine, something like that, Metalworks. They need to show something, and not having either of the cots down is a little bit more difficult. You eliminate 2 of the maps that you can get those upset games again. against it. And they're going to need to have done some research here.
We'll be hearing our stage might be ready, so we're going to throw this over to Tcmano on the stage with the teams, and they can get ready for this lower bracket final, see who's going to get the right to face against G6.
And welcome back to the Physgun Fireside Denver 2025 LAN. It is day 3, and this is it. This is where it all gets decided. We came here on Saturday with 8 teams in the Invitational competing to be the top dog of the world in the entire TF2 scene. And we've whittled that down to 3, 1 from each region, like a G6, Witness Gaming EU, and Witness Gaming Australia, all still in contention to be the best in the world. But now, at the start of the day, we have got 2 facing off for the chance to face Leica G6 in the finals. Over here on the red side, we have got Witness Gaming Australia. They have had such an amazing journey so far coming across the pond, and they have done exceptionally well playing against Froyotech, playing against so many amazing teams, and being able to work their way in here, breaking the 4th place Aussie curse, and already having a fantastic LAN. But of course, their competition is nothing to laugh at. We got Witness Gaming EU over on the other side, and they have done exceptionally well as well. They are here to win. They have been trying to do this for so long. Ever since they lost in Insomnia versus Froyotech, they have made it their goal, their mission to come back over here and defeat North America and Australia once and for all, and proudly declare themselves the best region here in the TF2 scene. Of course, we don't know how it's going to go. It's exciting that we've got all 3 regions still in contention to be the best in the world, but we're going to have to knock one out in this lower bracket finals. Let's send it over to our casters to get this show started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fireside Cast. It is day 3 of the Physgun Fireside Denver LAN. I am Eki with the one and only Wild Rumpus, here to bring you the lower bracket final between Witness Gaming EU and Witness Gaming Australia.
Yeah, I mean, exciting stuff. I think that going into this tournament and this event, a lot of people wanted to see an international team in grand finals. Fortunately, we will not be seeing both of them, but at the very least, we're going to see one. And I guess the question is, which one will it be?
Yeah, that is the question, and I'm honestly thinking the desk, I believe, said Europe was probably going to, I wouldn't say dominate Australia, but they would take it in a 2-0. It wouldn't be a 3-map series. And honestly, I just don't see that. The Australians have been playing very well. They've been, vastly improving since, the show match that we saw where Europe did kind of dominate. But I think Australia has a good chance to actually defeat Europe this time.
Yeah, and interestingly enough as well, it seems like Australia has had kind of the bracket that maybe EU wanted to have to prove themselves, because not only did the Aussies knock Froyotech out of the entire tournament, out at 5th place, but they also got to fight the Balls team, which is another top-tier North American competition.
Yeah, the Australians have been doing exceptionally well, I honestly, like I said, I really do think they have a great chance of knocking out the Europeans here. I think they have a very good chance of advancing up into the grand final to really see what region is better here.
Yeah, I still think that EU are going to be the favorites going into this kind of matchup, because it's easy to hype up the Australians simply because they've had such close and such eventful matches, because they've had such an exciting bracket, versus Witness Gaming EU has been flying a little under the radar, perhaps. And yeah, not going to have the flashy upsets, not going to have the flashy knocking Froyo out and things like that. But they're still just such a strong team. And remember as well that going into this LAN, a lot of people thought they were going to take it all, let alone make grands.
Yeah, and someone said something about Australia being 5th. I don't know who said that.
Yeah.
There were murmurs about Australia being 5th place if they.
I think that was if they played well, though. So.
Yeah, that's if they played well, and I think they're playing exceptionally so far. So I guess they beat the 5th place if they play well allegations.
Yeah, and the 4th place curse as well, because historically Australian teams who have come to these international competitions have always just been the 4th place teams, and that's been dubbed a curse that's finally been broken by this team here, Witness Gaming Australia.
Yeah, Witness Gaming Australia has made, I think, a huge impact for this land, not only in terms of how historic it is, but again, just playing so well in the games that we've seen them play in. I mean, they've earned their place in either 3rd or maybe 1st or 2nd if they end up beating the Europeans and move up into that grand final. But at the bare minimum, they have earned themselves that 3rd place placement. I mean, they're here in the lower bracket final for a reason, and I honestly think they're going to take it the extra mile.
Yeah, and I'm curious actually how either of these teams would match up against G6 in Grands, because of course G6 are looking in top form, and they're a very, very, very difficult team to beat when they're in that top form. They had a close-ish match against Witness Gaming EU, but still looked pretty comfortable on it. However, the matchups this tournament have not been, I'll say, consistent in the sense that there almost seems to be some rock, paper, scissors dynamics where a team that might lose to another team ends up losing to the team that you understand what I'm saying. I made the worst possible way of phrasing that. But the transitive property doesn't necessarily apply to these matchups. And while it looks like G6 maybe take things over Witness EU potentially, the Aussies, if they were to get past this massive roadblock, who knows?
Yeah, honestly, I think, I guess we could say the Australians would be the underdog for this fight because, like you said, EU's probably going to be the favorite going in, and I can understand why. Europe has played extremely well as well. They've been pretty much rolling anyone they have had to play against, but I, like I've said a couple times already, I genuinely think Australia has, a higher chance. I'm an Australia believer. I think they can make it past 3rd. I think they can crush the 4th place curse. And
yeah, I certainly hope they do, because this is just a team that I enjoy watching and want to cheer on. But that being said, make no mistake that the Euros are here to play. And this is a team that was formed specifically for the sake of international competition, for something like today. More so to beat Banny, which unfortunately they were kind of deprived of. But yeah, I mean, the next best thing beyond that is taking the trophy.
Yeah, and I think our analyst desk said they got robbed as well. I can't help but like kind of feel bad for them because, I think most people had envisioned, a likely EU versus NA LAN, and I don't think they anticipated it being G6 that was probably going to make the final.
G6 is, I mean, they're obviously a fantastic team, and a lot of the time at these North American competitions, it's them and Froyo, right? Most of the time, if it's a LAN setting, G6 seems to be particularly strong on LAN, to be honest. But as far as the EU versus Froyo matchup is concerned, it does seem like Witness Gaming EU kind of had Froyo's numbers in those times that they paired up in, for example, the group stages. And I'm sure that Froyo was a particular team that they were looking at counter strats for and sort of adjusting their game plan for, maybe in a way that's not the case for G6. So I imagine that last night, a lot of these Witness EU players were probably up late, probably looking over demos, and probably studying G6 specifically, and to that extent as well, Witness Gaming AU, because now that the competition's a little thinner, you can really focus in on how they play and try and counter that.
Yeah, I think a while back, there was just so many teams that you couldn't really, look through all of the possible ones that you could fight against within a certain amount of time. But like you said, the bracket's gotten much thinner. They only have 2 opponents to look out for and review and try and see how they play. And I think they probably went ahead and did that. I would have if I was in their position. And I also think we have map picks available to talk about. So moving into these. Ooh, Gully Band and Bagel Band. Interesting. Sunshine for Witness Australia. Product. So we will have some Koth. Witness Gaming EU going to pick Product here. And the decider will be Metal, which I think someone on the desk mentioned that there needs to be some kind of shakeup. There needs to be some kind of Metal play.
Yeah, Marmaloo was mentioning maybe a Sunshine, maybe a Metal, and it makes sense that Witness AU actually went with both of those maps, in fact, and notably banned Snakewater as well, the map that they had a very tough time against Witness EU in their prior matchup in the bracket. And yeah, starting out on Sunshine is interesting. One thing that's curious, well, it's not that curious, I suppose, that Witness EU have been consistently banning Bagel. I think that we are unlikely to see them let this map through. It seems like they've been very adamant about banning it so far. Sunshine, I believe we saw Witness AU have a fantastic match against Ball's team, so it makes sense that this is their go-to map pick.
Yeah, I didn't get to catch a lot of what happened yesterday. Of course, I wasn't able to really tune into the stream, so I guess you're more well versed on that than me. You saw more of it, so I guess what were your takeaways from those games that you got to see yesterday?
Right. Well, from the game that I was casting and really paying attention to was the Witness AU versus Ball's team matchup. And that went, I believe, 2-0 for Witness Gaming. Snakewater was very much a slow burn. Witness were on their last a lot. They were on the back foot. And they held through. They were able to prevent any of the aggression from Ball's team really materializing into too much. But it was a close game that ended in a win for Witness Gaming. And then the pace just shifted on Sunshine. They ended up winning that 5-1. It was not particularly close, to be honest. Competitive fight to fight, but still, it looked like Witness were definitely the team comfortable on that map. And yeah.
Yeah, from the sounds of it, Australia is they're not playing around anymore. Maybe they were a little rusty still beforehand on day one. I think this is also like the 4th time.
Yeah, we are going as well.
EU and Australia fighting, but we are going live to the first map of the day, Sunshine. Enrith is actually pretty quick to mid. Neither team is treating any damage out just yet. Looks like it's going to be a pretty slow mid so far, but the aggression is coming out from the Australians as they're pushing forward to try and fight the Euros. Lucas could be able to take down Enrith here. Tomas going to find a 3 as well. See, Tomas finding 3 actually, and that is going to be a very, very strong mid win for the Europeans.
Yeah, and that is absolutely not what you want to see if you're the Australians, because usually the first mid is at least a preview to the game, and that was such a confident one from the Europeans. I mean, they basically just posted up outside their valley. They didn't really even move that much, just focused on absorbing the Australian aggression, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, the Europeans knew exactly what they had to do, and like you said, they played back, absorbed the aggression, and just won off of that momentum. Now we have the Uber coming into last here, EU popping a little early to try and get their demo through. Sentry does go down, and at this point, it's just going to be an even fight on the last. Poppy and Tomas all going down, now Ixie as well. They have a lot of cap time, but it's only Hugo and Otto. Hugo, I think, is going for it.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, almost finding Lau there would have been catastrophic for the Australians. Nice hold, though, obviously. I'm surprised how little cap time there was. The cap is almost ticked at this point, but that was entirely from Lucas standing on it with that ×1 cap rate, just not getting shot at. Nonetheless, though, will be advantage here for Lau. We're going to see a very fast, just dry push through Valley, no holds barred. And look at this pace as well. They are chasing into Cafe. We might see a use into 2 here. It's the kind of pace where you might want to just take a pop. But look at this. The Europeans are completely routed. They're just backing up, and the Australians have realized that. They say, we don't need to use. They're leaving regardless. And it's still 30 ad if they wanted to go. Looks like since they took the 2 points, that's usually a rule of thumb to slow down. So you might be seeing things even out here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure things are going to even out, especially with down being out of the equation. It's got to be a little bit of a reset moment. You have to prep to fight either an exchange or rip in a sack, and I think the Australians are probably going to prefer going for the sack. You could exchange this, and I think the Australians, with their aggressiveness and how they've been playing while being aggressive, might lean a bit more towards that, but I'm thinking that they're just going to rip a sack, and we're going to have to wait for the Australians really to pry open the last hole.
Yeah, so noticeably, down there opened the spawn door for Silvo to switch off of Scout. And down took the opportunity as well to do some off-glass checking, see if the other team has a sniper or anything like that. The sniper is now fully revealed, as Hugo is well aware they have one. And this is an interesting hold from the Europeans as well. This is something that really only Witness EU does, have this gun top left, holding that door locked tight. Most teams would put their sentry gun on the point that kind of watches the right side. And the right side is definitely more exploitable, but as we saw here, it's not super exploitable. Silvo and Cookie both died trying to peek that door that maybe feels a little more vulnerable, but if the spam is really reactive there, and if they're expending more resources on that door that they no longer have to defend with the sentry gun really holding down top left, then it's still a hold.
Yeah, I mean, a hold as a whole, they were, like you said, they were able to get 2 picks while holding it, and that door it's not open. You still have to fight pretty hard to get through, maybe get yourself in a spot where you can spam that gun if you even want to peek it from this angle, because honestly, it may just be better for them to waddle warrior their way through top right and just try and take it down. But we're going to have to wait for any kind of sack attempt to happen until that goes down. I think Australia is just trying to find a doorway that isn't being watched. The Europeans are just rotating perfectly.
Yeah, notably as well, Poppy spawned up on a banner and basically has it at this point. Now, banner is something that is usually used offensively into last as a stalemate breaker, but if the defenders use that valuable defensive asset, it very much is a safeguard against those kinds of aggressive plays. And I think in general, Soldier players could be better maybe about switching to these situational unlocks, because obviously you don't want to run a banner to mid. The gunboats are just so incredibly valuable. But in a position like this, having that charge can be the difference between winning a round and losing it, especially if like auto gets forced somehow here. A banner might even things out in a way that it still turns into a hold.
Yeah, but I think we have the sack attempt coming in from the Australians, but he's going to go down. It's going to be down, moving in as well. Isn't able to get anything, takes themselves out with the rocket. I think they just kind of got pinched there. They actually lost 3. I think
banner popped on the push out as well. Yeah, and it looks like they are getting aggressive with that minus 35% damage taken, 65, something massive and huge advantage. Uber actually gets popped. Looking for an exchange here, makes something happen as this banner's fading. Poppy does die, so that's a kill for the Australians in this post fight, but auto never used, meaning that Witness EU now have full advantage into mid. They are down a player, but Lau caught in choke, goes down, and Lucas finds another as well. Uber does get popped, but you are totally okay with this if you are Witness EU. You're just collecting kills at this point, trying to keep auto safe, because at the end of the day, this is going to be Uber advantage as long as you do that.
Enrith, the demon with the pipe that takes down Ixie and Tomas, and then auto falls just after. Beautiful pipe, honestly. What can I say?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Australians needed, because now it's scrappy, right? Both teams have lost multiple players. Lau is such an early spawn, though, considering that they died early into the prior fight, that this is now 50 ad. As we actually have Tomas rolling out here, definitely a player to keep your eyes on. I don't want to say too much else in case the venue is too loud. Anyway, this is going to be advantage for the Australians. It looks like they will be going cafe. We've seen a lot of pop-throughs on this sort of stage of the tournament. Looks like they're attempting a dry push. The spam is nice. Tomas is approaching, however. And this is a big threat at the moment. Is he going for the soldier? No, he wants the bigger fish and finds it. Down goes Lau to the backstab, and Witness with a nice little play there from Tomas, finding the great opportunity to get Uber advantage for Witness EU.
Yeah, this could be a fantastic opportunity, and they're going to walk their way in, no questions asked. Tomas is still up on Spy, just playing Gun Spy at this point. The Europeans have very easily positioned themselves on second. They pretty much wiped Australia, really, and they are going to have to back all the way up. They need to play by their own choke, honestly. But I think they're just going to try and play a little bit more aggressive. I think Poppy just spawned up. Down bombing in, gets some good damage in the choke, but it's not going to convert anything into a kill. Connor tries to follow up as well, but is likely to fall, trying to jump away into Valley. That's going to be Witness EU, just kind of slowly pushing their way into mid. They don't have to use Uber. They're going into Australia's second with that Uber advantage. Fading now, so it's just about 20%, but that's still high enough for you to get in, especially with Connor still in the respawn.
Yeah, and I mean, remember as well that Witness AU were pushing into EU's second, so being able to transition that all the way into the other team's last, granted it's even Ubers now, but still transitioning all the way to that second point off of one meta kill, I mean, that is just fantastic. Now they get to cook, now they get to try to break this stalemate that Witness AU were unable to do. And yeah, I mean, you have a lot of options. Off-classing is a pretty common way to break a stalemate. It does start, however, with applying pressure, sending a sack, things like that.
Goes in, going for that sack you just mentioned. Hugo goes down. Connor is the one to find him, but Lau was extremely low. One good splash rocket would have just deleted it. They ended up using, so they're not going to go down. They're going to be on full Uber dis-ad, holding this last. They have to wait. Europe has to wait for Poppy to spawn, though, so that will slow them down for a little bit. Maybe give the Australians time to set up a gun, which it looks like they're going to be doing, but no way do they get anywhere near having enough Uber. The best they can really do is just get ready to kite this. Europeans are coming in. Gun goes down now. The gun is down. Right side spawn locked out for the Australians. They're going to have to come out through the left. Soldiers are bombing in. Tomas looking to cut them down. Is it going to find a one here behind the point? That's going to be down, getting deleted. It's only one pick now. Yeah. Connor dead as well. The heavy going down. Cookie getting focused. Lucas is dead. It's Ixie fighting the point. Uber. But right now it's just Silvo. They Uber. Maybe, I think Ixie's caught here. There's no way.
No, but the juggle.
But
juggling the medic off the point so that they can cap. I mean, that's something you often see a demo trying to attempt with stickies, but a soldier doing that with rockets is quite difficult. You gotta hit multiple air shots on that medic, and just well-played push there from Witness EU, securing themselves the first round of the series, and so far, it does look like the game has kind of been in their hands.
Yeah, the Euros have definitely had good control over the map, over the game itself so far. That was like 10-ish minutes that it took for that round to end. So if the Australians can try and turn things around, I think things can start going their way. Ixie, though, with a very early pick on Enrith. Hugo going to be bombing in, but that'll be Silvo taking them down. It's going to be Tomas down in behind, though, finding Lau and Silvo. Witness EU yet again, leaving one person till the very, very end. They're just not able to hold on to this mid. This is another dominant mid win by Witness EU.
Yeah, and this was quite similar to the first mid, actually, in that Enrith is a pretty early player to die. Lau as well died well before Otto. Otto, in fact, didn't die at all and had a fantastic kite against the counter aggression, having lost Lau. So yet again, Witness EU in a position to score around here, mid to last. Still going to be 60 ad into last by the time things really get moving here. Plenty of time. We'll see if the Australians can pull off another miracle hold like they did after the first mid.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can, but Lucas goes in with that Uber because he's going to go down. So is the Sentry. Goes down a little late in the Uber, so people may have been, pushed back, but I don't think it's going to matter. Down gets deleted by Ixie. That's going to be Hugo finding Silvo. The players for Australia are falling very quickly, and there's no one alive to hold the point. That's a second round claimed by Witness Gaming EU.
Yeah, oftentimes a last push is won off of like one thing going particularly well. Maybe a couple, such as, you know, you get a kill, you get really good space. Maybe you get to cross because the gun goes down fast. In that Uber, almost everything that could have gone well did. They immediately got a kill on the engineer of Cookie caught in the spawn. They got so much cap time, and they were able to just secure pick after pick and just dominate.
Yeah, I mean, that was just one of the better lasts. Not the best last you could ask for, but probably one of the better lasts that you could possibly get. Connor going in for the counter jump on the soldier and the scout is going to be able to find Ixie. Tomas is still cleaning house. Hugo gets taken, or claims two, claims allow, and Connor. It's the Europeans yet again with another incredibly dominant mid win.
Yeah, and I mean, we were here a minute ago. Now again, mid to last position for Witness Gaming EU. Yeah, I don't know. I think if this round actually goes through, fantastic opportunity to pause, maybe reset the mental if you're the Australians. We do have Cookie as the early engineer spawn, gonna get that gun built decently high level. Silvo is, of course, sniping the door, just keeping the Europeans honest about actually popping through the door. Looks like it will be yet another top left Uber. Does take out the teleporter, down goes the gun. Will be cap time coming out now. Stickies get dead on the point. That is a lot of cap time, but at this point, the heavy is in position to defend point for the time being. Ixie goes down, the commit is coming across, bomb in on the heavy. Cookie so weak. Does finally go down to Lucas, who dies on the point. It's just Tomas and Otto. Otto already leaving, realized, saw the writing on the wall, trying to get out, but it looks like the chase is on. There is a spawner in Ixie, will meet up with Otto now, who just surfs the damage away. 6 HP, is able to get out. Unable to find that medic kill is unfortunate, but not heartbreaking for the Aussies, because keep in mind, Lao still lived. It is now still add into mid, so they have more to take.
Yeah, that was a beautiful live by Otto there, but the Australians are moving in through Cafe. The combo is at least Tomas going to be able to find Lao. This is the absolute worst possible situation you could be in for the Australians right now. Your med gets dropped by a sniper.
Oh.
And I think, honestly, the Europeans could just easily push their way in, and I think that's what they're starting to do. Connor gets taken down by Hugo. I think they're just trying to whittle down their health, maybe try and push into mid without having to take too much of a fight. There is a scout right in front of Otto, but they're not going to be able to get anything. Cookie goes down as Lucas Thank helps take him down. Poppy, I think, juggled him up, or at least forced him out from under. Nice bomb from Hugo, going to be landing on and taking down Enrith, and almost dies himself, but is saved by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, that late demo death, though, I mean, we see now just the dry push through the door, but Silvo on Sniper finds the one kill that they needed to. The dry push, there's two classes that work against it. There's the Sniper and there's the sticky traps. They figured no demo, we can milk through, but the Sniper proved no, you can't. But nonetheless, these players are collecting kills. It's just Enrith the spawner against two very weak soldiers. Poppy barely enough to bomb, does land on the height and has enough rockets loaded to take out Enrith. By the skin of their teeth, it is a 3-0 game. And again, the Australians, they might want to take a pause, maybe think about things, because this game can slip away from you very quickly if you're not on top of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the value of just taking a pause here, especially when you're down 3. There's 14-20 left in the game for them to try and get themselves back on the board. That's enough time to maybe tie it before banny time kicks in. Get yourself a little bit of speed built up so you can continue forward with that momentum, but it doesn't look like they're going to be taking a pause. Maybe they're waiting till it's a one-round game, but down is up in heaven, or in Bell, will get taken down, is going to crater. Silvo finds Tomas and Lucas as well. Bomb coming in from Hugo, lands on top of the choke, going to be able to find, I believe that was Cookie, and it's a 2v3, no med alive. Australia towards the European Valley, and that's going to be Hugo bombing forward, getting a lot of good damage. Nice damage onto this soldier here. Opts to fight the scout in front of him instead. Ixie coming in to try and clean up off of that damage.
Oh my god, Ixie! Oh,
it's
okay.
a demon, but it's taken down by Connor.
Yeah, I mean, EU really had no business winning that fight, but Ixie just popped off, and Connor is too weak to stay in, does have to leave. So these better spawners from Europe are going to be able to take fast positioning on mid. That being said, it is a dry fight nonetheless. Bomb comes out from Poppy, just trying to fade, lands on down, finds that kill, and yeah, with that kill coming out, the Aussies don't really like what they see anymore. They are just going to back up to second and hopefully play some even Ubers here.
Yeah, I also think, with down falling at that, mid-fight 2.0, I think the Australians would have committed to it if Hugo hadn't spawned, if it was still, some kind of 5v5. Hugo and, I believe it was Silvo. Hugo and Silvo going to be fighting there. Hugo will go down. They do avenge Hugo at least. They find Connor and Sil though. So the Europeans have a decent window to try and at least bully the Australians back, try and force them away from the point, force their Uber out. There is some good damage. Enrith is very low, so a bomb from Poppy could seal the deal here. That is going to be a force as I believe Poppy bombed in, and that's about... I think that's really what the Europeans wanted here. They lost Poppy for force. They're actually going to lose
the immediate re-Uber.
Well.
I love this pace from the Europeans because they know that, okay, there's a shove to mid. Cookie and Lau are in on the wrong side of the map. Somehow there's kills going in favor of the Australians. The focus fire is honestly there. I don't know how that fight worked out for them in any way. All of the Australians were completely caught to that Uber, but yet they kited into mid, refought their own point, and wiped EU.
And Poppy's getting found out here as well, isn't able to land the final rocket to take down that scout that was just in his face. Enrith going to be the one to collect the kill. Now going to be bombing forward, trying to bully the demo back, eats a pipe in the air though. Good work from Lucas to deny that demo getting any further and scare him from actually chasing you down.
Yep, Uber advantage now into last, and this is the Australians' opportunity to get on the board. Maybe the best opportunity they've had yet so far this game. Looks like they will just be picking a standard door here, using through against the sniper. Gun goes down instantly. We are seeing a cross. Actually, no, they choose to stay on the same side. Everyone in EU is stuck in spawn. Fantastic opportunity to pressure the cap, but it is not happening. They're trying to find kills. Enrith goes down, so does Down. Lucas dies, however. It's just a heavy and a medic. Cap time coming out.
Down, the heavy's dead. It's just Auto. The Australians have put themselves on the board.
And that was a very closely fought Uber. Honestly, if that didn't go well, I think the cap time would have been the issue there. There were 4, maybe 5 players on blue in spawn, and that's not a position from which they can contest the point. So yeah, they were still able to pull it through, but still, if things were a little closer, they might not have gotten that.
Yeah, I think the Australians got pretty lucky there. Not to say that they didn't earn themselves that win, of course, but things definitely did go in their favor when it probably shouldn't have. Hugo and I believe this is Poppy going to be bombing in deep. Hugo and Poppy going to get taken out by Connor and Cookie, but it's Lau getting taken down by Auto. Medic on medic violence. When will it end? Tomas finds Connor, but Down is in deep, chasing hard. That's a nice air shot to send Auto into the floor at Mach 5, give them a crater, and at least give themselves a chance to even out these Ubers.
Lucas will be going down quite late here, actually, and that is a bit of a problem for EU because you're maybe thinking about taking a fight on second. It was a very late fight on mid, so a second dry fight is in the cards, but now you have to take that fight down at demo. That being said, the rollout from the Aussies is not particularly fast, so Lucas is at least on the way if the Europeans can stall. It is even Ubers at the end of the day here, but it does look like the Australians are finally getting their footing on the mids, which is really important for them.
Yeah, and this is a lot of good damage coming out from Poppy. They're going to be able to find Connor. They get traded out by Cookie, and if anyone else on the European team was able to pinch or do anything else with that damage, maybe if Hugo was able to get over there, that could have been a massacre for the Australians. There were 3 in that doorway, 3 eating 80 damage rockets, and that could have just been the nastiest cleanup of the century. But Europeans miss out on that opportunity. Soldier fading from the Australian side. Nobody going to be following in off of that. And I think we're just going to be sitting on another stalemate situation where at least the Australians are going to have even Ubers, fighting on even ground if they decide to push into second. I'm thinking that they're just going to do what everyone would do in this situation, is throw in a sack.
Yep, and usually sacks are best associated with some form of pressure. Enrith has been rotating some doors. Oh my God, Lucas with the 2-pipe on Connor and finding the 3rd onto down. That's 2 kills for 1. Definitely favoring Witness EU here, and they are trying to get through this choke. We might see an Uber exchange come out, but Silvo dies. Lau gets forced. Ooh, and now Otto can milk for quite a bit. Does eventually use Uber, but it's a much better Uber for the Europeans. Lau's going to be caught and choke goes down. And this is now horrible for the Australians. We see, looks like Connor trying to make something happen, is now just trying to run away with his life. All the Australians are completely routed. Otto surviving while Lau goes down means that this Uber advantage could be yet another round if they're able to transition into second cleanly here, which seems to be exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, the Australians have just been beaten back. Any advantage they have, they seemingly they lose it in any way, really. I mean, they're just not holding on to their advantage as well, whether it be player ad that they're, maybe not pressuring off of, or Uber ad, or, if they're in a position to rip something, then usually they're not really doing it. Luke is going to be able to find the sentry. Silvo takes down Hugo. Tomas walking across the point here with that Uber. They find the heavy. They're looking to take him down first and foremost, but I don't think they're going to be able to. This is a great play from down. Going to be launching Tomas up into the air, going to be getting the air shot. Lucas goes down to Cookie, but not before he finds Connor. But nonetheless, you find a pick there, but the Australians managed to hold.
Yeah, I mean, in the prior matchup as well between these two teams, it was actually kind of shoe on the other foot, where the Australians were having some issues breaking into last with multiple last push attempts. This time it seems kind of in the reverse, as we actually just see the pop through choke. Enrith landing on a sticky trap does just die. Ixie does go down, but using your Uber just to trade your enemy scout for your demo is absolutely not what you want to happen. Lau is in such danger, gets landed on. Lucas finds the kill, but they lost so many players for it, and now Otto at 95%. Can he get Uber in time? 97. If Tomas dies, then Otto has no hope of getting Uber. It looks like it'll be Cookie on the chase. Turns around, just puts down Tomas. In on Otto now, but Ixie is able to save his medic's life when it was the most important here. And now Witness EU with control of mid and with full advantage can just re-push second and push into last again.
Yeah, get Ixie the Medal of Honor. I mean, what are we doing? This is a hero. This is a superhero coming in able to save Otto like that. The Australians have shown up though. They want to defend, and they're going to. Poppy and Hugo both go down. Connor and Silvo able to find those picks. They're going to be Ubering in. Ixie running towards Lau. They can't keep their med alive on the Australian side. That's going to be 2 picks from the Uber with the med as well. Ixie loses the fight with Cookie, but gets avenged by Otto with the head kill. It's just Lucas and Otto alive right now. Otto will get traded out, and that will be a successful yet scrappy hold from the Australians.
Yeah, I mean, they're just thriving really well in these scrappy post fights. It's something that was getting them a lot of last defenses, and here, despite the fact that Lau quite caught to the Uber, they were able to nonetheless convert, as we see a trade happening in choke between the two soldiers. Silvo barely getting out there on 3 HP. As far as the Ubers are concerned, it is slight ad for Lau, but nowhere near getting Uber quite yet, so both these teams can take pretty much a even dry fight as far as things are concerned. Really nice high bomb there from Connor. Does just fade as Hugo goes down. Does get traded out overall, but Tomas dying means that the fight is now going in the favor of Witness Gaming AU. They will secure mid, and Lau now at 90% means this is still that same ad margin if they choose to take it, and it looks like they're going Cafe.
Yeah, the Australians know that this is where they want to be. If they're planning on taking something quick, down going to be pinching the soldier close. That will be a picked up kill for Enrith. I don't think they know about Hugo in the forwards. Lands a rocket, jumps out, going for the beam. But what a rocket from Connor to save Lau from the bomb. Australia hanging on. If not, I wouldn't even say this is by a threat. They're hanging on pretty well here. They need to move in with these Ubers being extremely close and this Buddhist being alive. That's going to be 2 down for the Australians now.
Ooh, the force.
3. But yeah, getting that force is huge for the Australians. They lose 3 for it, but now they have full Uber ad. They can easily fight into 2. But Silvo in dungeon still, fighting the soldier.
Now. Yeah, at that point, all Silvo really can hope for is a trade. Anything past that, and it's like a clip of your career. But nonetheless, Lau now full advantage into second. They definitely want to dry fight this push, or dry fight this. That being said, they immediately pop. This is called because Witness EU looked like they were caught. I imagine that Enrith thought he maybe could get the medic there or get enough kills to make something happen into last and offset the Uber disadvantage after using. Unfortunately, that does not materialize. They do get a kill onto Poppy, but that's really all. They're going to be peeking into last nonetheless.
Down's going through, trying to find the sack, but gets levitated by the gun. Tomas going to be able to clean up the kill, and Cookie will go down to a trap from Lucas as well. The Australians on the back foot now. Tomas does not care, no quarter, chasing, moving towards the point here, wants to bully the soldier away, and will be successful. Not able to find any more picks, but that Uber does come out from the Europeans as well. So the Australians will be sitting on full Uber ad yet again, and it's just a flip-flop of the ad situation a lot of the time that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, you're really happy with that. Ooh, actually just popped through Valley, does find a kill, might find both soldiers. Okay, now Witness AU in a fantastic position. Gun's being built, but it's only level 1. Soldier's gonna bomb in, almost catches the NG, but unable to. But look at this space from the Australians. They find another kill on Lucas. That's quite important. Down goes Auto. They still need to cap 2, however. 2 is so close to being capped. It's a full wipe from Witness Gaming EU. Spawners up now, but this second point still needs to get capped. It does look like Silvo just dancing around in last, hoping that he could cap the point after second ticks over, but no, the spawners shut that down, and what was such a close fought last point ends up resetting. Lau still has ad here, but fantastic heads up play there, recognizing the situation for the Europeans and focusing their resources to stopping 2 there.
Yeah, that was just very well played. I don't think any situation fits saying so close but so far better than that last push. Just unable to convert 2, and now they're stranded essentially on last. They can't send anyone back, but they don't care. They're going to rip another push. They got Uber pretty early on. Enrith goes in, finds the sentry, but they have no picks to show for it. It's just a gun going down. Hugo bombing in behind Connor. It will be Tomas finding up the kill, or cleaning up the kill. That's 1 player dead for each team. Now Lau going down
crits.
to Ixie as well. The crits get popped from Witness EU, and that'll be a successful hold. Australia losing Lau. They don't want to stay in for, they don't want to overstay their welcome. They're gonna try and get out. I think Cookie's going in behind. Oh no, but they've been found out. They're out for now though.
Yeah, that disad last crits spawn is definitely a European strategy, not really seen elsewhere in the world. I mean, the main conceit is Crits Creek builds faster than an Uber charge, so in this positions where you're not getting an Uber, you might get a crits, and it can help defend. Now, it does have the downside of, not being an Uber, as the aggression here from the Australians find a kill on Lucas first and then turn it into an auto kill, but there's 3 healthy combat players chasing Lau and Silvo. They are trying to get out of there with their scout speed. Bomb comes in, down goes Silvo. It's just Lau, and it will be a full wipe from the Australians. Auto gonna spawn early enough to maybe have some relevant ad here. And notably as well, we just hit the overtime.
Yeah, overtime has been reached, and Witness EU are on the attack right now. They're up 2 rounds. It's a 3-1 game, and all they have to do is win this next set of pushes to secure themselves the win on this map. Honestly, I think the Europeans are just probably going to rip this 30 ad before they even get Uber. They're just going to try and push in. They want to get 2 for free, ideally here. But the Australians don't want to give any ground.
Poppy.
They're trying to hold as best as they possibly can. Poppy goes in and does get taken down, but Lau is on 11 HP. Finds the pack. He's up to normal-ish levels, and that is going to be a sack from Witness EU. They can't afford to really lose anything else lest they not be able to protect their beam. Actually, I think they're going to be going in here. Ixie gets taken down in Valley. Hugo posturing forward, trying to prevent the Aussies from pushing back into their own second here, and that's going to be Lucas finding Cookie as well. Soldiers are rapidly trying to retreat, getting met by everyone. It's going to be Poppy finding Silvo in Cafe, barely winning that fight, and I think the Australians have lost 2. They're going to have to back all the way up into their second, but at the very least, they're going to be able to hold on to that Uber. That'll give them time to set up a proper defense and force the Europeans to take a couple risks, try and send in some sacks before they even think about pushing.
I think that was a fantastic example of tracking Ubers and how important it can be, because the Australians recognize that, yes, it is disat, but the other team doesn't have Uber. So they can hold as if, oh no, Poppy finding the drop onto Lau. That is horrible here for the Australians, because they had just played so well to secure themselves this full ad on their own last to push out with, and now the shoe is on the other foot. No one on last even has a medic to heal them, no buff, and Silvo dies to the bomb. It's almost surely over at this point. The rest is just a formality. Down dying. Looks like Connor will be taking a lot of damage here on the point. Gets cleaned up. Tomas does go down, but still difficult to imagine the Europeans don't take this very comfortably. It's a full wipe, and all they have to do is stand on the point and get those extra cap points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, very well played from Witness EU there. A lot of heads-up decisions and just very good mechanics being showcased when they secured that dub. The Australians played well, but not well enough to defeat the Europeans on this map. It is still a best-of-3 series, so the Australians have a few more chances to try and get themselves on the board in terms of maps won, but Sunshine appears to just not have been their map.
Yeah, and it honestly didn't seem that close either. It was still an exciting match to watch nonetheless, just because, you know, players from both teams were making great plays and a lot of exciting things were happening. But EU definitely seemed like they were in the driver's seat the majority, if not the entire game. There were times where the Australians had some footing. I mean, they got around, of course, and they were definitely in positions to get forces and secure rounds and things like that. But overall, it's still kind of just Europe all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of faith in the Australians, and I still do. I think maybe Sunshine just might not be their map. Maybe they struggle with Sunshine. Maybe, you know, it's not one of their stronger maps. I'm thinking maybe they'll have a good chance to put a map up on the board while fighting the Europeans here on our next map, which will be Product. I think this one's going to be pretty close. I think with Koth, as it usually does, will slowly turn into more of a DM fest than would be seen on, you know, something like Sunshine or something like Process. But I think our analyst desk is ready, so we can send it down to them really quick.
Welcome back to our analyst couch here at Physgun at Fireside Denver 2025. Once again, joined by Sandblast, joined by Marmaloo, and joined by a game which I guess we kind of predicted a little bit beforehand, but I don't know. I was more optimistic that the Aussies could have had a fight. What are your thoughts, Sandblast?
I mean, they started to come to life a little bit toward the end. I mean, it started out pretty dominant for the Euros as I was watching, but it was just unfortunate that you know, they ended up having some steam, but it was just too late into the game. Continuous overtime already had kicked in, and Europe just needed one more good advantage to really just take it, and they capitalized on it and just kind of walked away with it.
Yeah, that last advantage was what we saw before. It was Lau dropping. The instant they needed to win, they needed to hold it down. They were on the last drop. And I think this is just the common trend we've been seeing is just sloppy play. They have things, they get things going, and then something disastrous happens, and then Europe just rolls that all the way through. But overall, there were moments, as we've always said, there's moments from Australia, but they just can't string it together to get all those rounds up.
Yeah, it's a thing that, like, they're clearly very mechanically skilled, and there's lots of individual talent, and especially in these pushes, like, once the Ubers have gone and we get into these sort of messier fights, they're really finding good chances, but it's the Europeans, they seem to me like they're too good at keeping things under control.
Yeah, I mean, they really tighten up their gameplay compared to the last 2 days. I mean, they're playing around auto a lot better. Auto's had much less deaths compared to the first couple games that were played at the beginning of the LAN.
That first game was a bloodbath between the medics.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, if you watch the process game where Lau and Auto, like, consistently were getting picked, like, close to Uber. Like, Lau had a pretty crazy death at 95, kited to just a horrible spot. Seeing Auto play a lot better this LAN. And it just looks like they're a little bit stronger of a combo. You know, the Europeans are a bit stronger as a unit. It seems like they're a little bit more on the same page with each other. And it's interesting watching them play because there are not a lot of comers on that team. It's really kind of just Tomask and, you know, really trying to just lead his whole team forward, and Poppy chimes in here and there, but it's pretty organized and pretty simple.
Yeah, no, I forget it was you or someone was telling me, it's like, yeah, the comms for them is one person talking and everyone listening, where it's like, there's pros and cons to that, where if you go to like a team like Froyo or G6, there's constant chatter, which if done poorly, it's not manageable. But with one person calling everything, everyone is on the same page. And I think that's what you can see from a team like Europe. They're just consistently doing the same thing, always on the same page regardless, where maybe you go to like a Froyo, which, rest in peace, a lot of things are happening around the map. People are calling, I'm going to do this. And they're like, okay, let's follow up. But having that organized style is just completely shutting out Australia right now.
Yeah, it's an organized style that like this team has been in the making for many, many years. This core of players, the combo in particular, has played together for 4 or 5 years almost at this point. And it's the sort of style of play you can almost only do if you've been around like together for that long. Everyone has to know what their teammates do, and they have to know their tendencies, what they like to do, and you have to get your protocols in. And I think Witness, they've got the advantage of they've been around that long that they can they can play like that. And I agree. I think it's a really valuable style when you can get it working.
Yeah, I mean, they're proving it here, obviously. So, I mean, we're going into map 2 in a little bit here. I'm sure the players are probably just using their little restroom break, getting a little water.
Curious to see the pick bans on this, because Viaduct did come in, and I think every game we've really seen so far, Australia has banned Viaduct. I'm curious to see, did they ban Snake Water or something like that? But we do have,
here we go,
like we said, all the map bans. Let's see. So once again, Goalie Wash from Australia banned, Bagel from Europe. That's no surprise. And Product was picked by the Europeans. So Australia clearly are letting Product through, even though they have not let it through in a single series, I think.
They, I guess, more scared of the Gully Wash, because the Gully Wash game, the Aussies had a chance at it yesterday, but it was, again, it wasn't as dominant as Snakewater, but like the Euros, it looked good. And even in the G6 game, the Europeans, like they had a good stab at some of those rounds on Gully Wash. Maybe they're a bit worried.
Yeah, I think maybe they're just trying, and I respect the move. Instead of just doing it again, they're trying something new, and maybe they saw a little bit of weakness. Maybe they saw a gameplay where they're like, okay, we can make something happen here. And then the last map being Metalworks, which we kind of did talk about as a potential weakness, and we really just, I don't think we really know how these teams kind of match up on Metal at all.
Yeah, I don't think any of the maps so far that they've played, Metalworks has played between these two. I know this is probably the two teams that have played each other the most this entire tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of funny, honestly, just because they're not even in the same region.
No, we would think it'd be like a domestic matchup or like Froyo Europe, and then no, Europe versus Australia.
I'm sure the casters love it as well, with the same name on the teams as well. Like that must be fun for those guys.
I've given up on the Witness part. Sorry, Witness. It's just Europe and Australia, the entire continents.
Yeah, I mean, so going into this next map, I mean, it's Product. I mean, Witness Gaming, I mean, besides Froyo and Ball's Cup team, G6 has kind of been, the driving force of most of these Koth maps. Witness had a pretty okay showing yesterday. It was a 4-2. And I was talking to some of the G6 guys, mainly Logan, and he was saying that, just some kind of crazy stuff happened that round where it could have kind of just like trolled and the log guy died in like a weird miraculous way.
Yeah, can we get some final predictions for Product? Obviously, we've had our first map, Witness EU, 1 map up, 1 foot into the grand final. Quickly, Sandblast, do you think they're going to do it in 2, or are we going to a third map?
They're going to do it in 2. I think it's going to be a 4-1. I think the only way they get around is if Silvo plays Sniper and throws a curveball at him, whether it's at the beginning, middle, or end of the game. It's going to be a curveball. I think it's going to be a 4-1. It's going to win them the round, but then I'm sure Witness Gaming is going to be smart enough to be able to adapt to whatever curveball they're going to throw at them.
Yeah, I think if they kind of emulate the similar thing where when G6 pulled that sniper out, it really caught the Europeans off guard. Where it's like if Silvo can be on fire and go on sniper at least once or twice, it'll put them on the back foot a little bit. Where I think this, if they have some plans, which they should have some strategies. If they let the map they've been banning the entire event through, there has to be something that they saw or they're going to kind of throw out. And I'm going for, I want a good match. 4-3 Australia. I want 3 maps.
There we go. You heard it from our analyst. Let's see what happens in the game, though. As our casters are ready, we're going to throw it back. Take us away, Wild Rumpus and ecchymoses.
And we're back. No more analyst desk for you for now. You have to look at me and Rumpus again as we get ready to cover map 2, which will be Product, as you saw with the pick bans. Sunshine was Australia's pick, and they lost on that. And now the Europeans are moving on to, I guess we could say, home ground, as this is their pick. This is the map they want to play. They feel confident on product, and I can't blame them for feeling confident on product. I mean, from what they've showcased, they have fantastic DM, Lucas and their scouts, both of them just playing phenomenally and cleaning up a lot of damage that their soldiers are able to dish out. So really, the Europeans have been doing good, not only from a fundamental standpoint, but from a DM standpoint as well. They are kind of clearing house. So the Australians have a super tough match ahead of them if they want to make anything happen on product.
Yeah, and I mean, this is definitely a team that has dealt with those tough matchups and been able to prevail, but this, I think, is something else. I mean, it's hard to imagine that Witness EU are not very comfortable with the state of this match so far. Going into product, a map that they are very happy to play, very comfortable on, and as our analyst mentioned, a map that Witness AU were regularly banning just by default against other teams. They figure in this particular matchup, considering the maps we've already played against this particular team, we might let it through in favor of something else. Hard to imagine it's super comfortable for them.
Yeah, and especially if they weren't able to win on their own pick. You know, letting a pick that you've been constantly banning against teams that you're playing, you don't have the opportunities to actually play on it until now as we go live. It's a little scary. You're inviting a huge risk here, but I'm sure the Australians can try and make something happen. Maybe it's one of those situations where they win on each other's picks, but not their own. We'll have to find out, as very early on, good damage coming out onto Tomas, forces him to play a little bit further back. That's a bomb coming in from the side of Witness Gaming. A U down, could be going in deep, landing onto China. That's a nice rocket onto Otto, but Otto's going to survive with 83 HP left with barely a scratch on him, and that's going to be Witness Gaming EU, or AU rather, having to back out all the way with
Ooh, I really like this play from Cookie. Yeah, finding exactly what he needed to. Leaving just enough to get his medic out, but then hiding by Cliff for the forward hold. Finds a kill onto Lucas, and as a result, this is now an advantageous fight for the Australians. They find another kill on Tomas as well. And at this point, Poppy and Ixie are stuck in the flank. Ixie goes down. Is Poppy caught as well? But Hugo with a massive bomb finds Lau and hits the drop. Suddenly, this is now fantastic for the Europeans. They've held the point this entire time, mind you. All they have to do is wait for their spawners, push forward with this full Uber advantage, retake the point, and there's very little time that the Australians are going to win with that maneuver.
I don't even think the Australians have time to maybe send someone in deep, get him hidden, maybe hide them up on Cliff and just jump out at the Europeans as they push in. You literally just have to take this like an even fight. You have to walk forward if you want any hope of trying to find anything and pressure for your sniper. But Lucas goes down very early. Lau is just caught out, waddling in the open, will get deleted by the Europeans. So it's an Uber in for a med pick and a demo pick as Enrith goes down as well. Down is in, trying to get some damage, maybe secure a kill. Cookie will find Hugo, but Silvo and down goes down. Ixie's in, Connie deleted, or Connor rather deleted, and Cookie goes down as well.
Yeah, I mean, heads up Uber there from the Europeans. They got basically everything they wanted to, but definitely bit off a lot and had some trouble chewing it because they were stuck behind against a lot of combat players behind them who have no other objective besides kill your medic and make it not Uber disad. That being said, that during that scrappy fight as well, a lot of time actually got earned from the Australians, so time add is relatively even, as we do have the sniper versus sniper. Silvo will be the one winning it, and that does actually entice a bomb out from Poppy, who I think catches a body shot as well, gets dealt with. Down goes Otto, down finding the opportunity there. It's only Tomas. Hugo now a spawner. Tomas way too weak to accomplish anything here. Oh. Actually goes down as well to Connor. The Australians have a nice opportunity to cap this point, and they have the sniper, which is a fantastic defensive asset to have here.
Yeah, having that sniper up, definitely going to force the Europeans to slow down, think about which area they're pushing. Lucas spots the sniper early on, so Silva will have to back away, try and find a better spot to reposition himself in. But Hugo's going to be bombing through onto the Australians' grass, bombing forward, landing on top of the sniper. It's going to be a double for the sniper, but they lose 3 for it. They lose auto as well. This is just a travesty for the Europeans. Ixie trying to go forward, find something, but is too weak to get anything done unless they win. Wait a minute, this could turn around for them. The Miet is caught in, and Lau is going to go down to Tomas.
Yeah, basically a reverse of what happened to EU is the aggressive Uber finding the medic, but yet in the post, just the difference in combat players ending up going poorly for the team they used. This time around, however, the Australians certainly had the opportunity to get out and retreat. They really thought that with the heal advantage, they could take that fight, but the Europeans just hit their shots.
Yeah, the Europeans are, like I said earlier, they have some strong DM skills, and I think this will definitely, that will definitely play into account as the Australians try and claim the thrown-on product. Nice shot from down onto Lucas, going to take him down, but that's a trade for Hugo finding down. Ixie dies as well. Cookie able to mop up that pick, but now Hugo bombing the sniper, takes down Silvo. 2 players down for each team. It could be 3 soon. Hugo goes down, so does Poppy. 4 down for the Europeans as Tomas and Otto are now forced to back out. They're actually probably going to use here. They use it, they take down Enrith, who bombs forward. This is a little risky from the Australians here. They lost their demo. They're about to lose Lau as well. It's 1 HP. Lucas pitches, gets the sticky. Otto dies though. By down. The Ubers have been evened out.
Yeah, and I mean, this chaos overall is still kind of favoring EU. The fact that they lost multiple really important picks here and they have that slower spawn because they have the point definitely means that the immediate refight from Witness AU is going to be stronger. However, that scrap and that back and forth, oh my God, Silvo finding the shot onto Otto, suddenly scrap everything else. That time ad earned from the scrap for EU is now in question. With 10 seconds left, so much cap time, they really want to find this kill onto Lau. Looks like the bomb in does find Lau. Poppy, wow.
It's just med for med. All of the time, it's med for med. Otto goes down, soon too will Lau. Seems to be the rhythm of this bracket, whether it be group stages or the double elimination bracket we've seen. But looks like Australia going to be trying to fight forward. They lose Silvo very early on, but that's made worthwhile. Oh my goodness, the Europeans lose 4. Otto and Lucas go down. Now it's also Poppy who dies. It's just Hugo caught in, down, able to jump with 43 HP to spare and take down the stranded soldier. The Australians will maintain control of the point for just a little bit longer, but I don't know if they'll be able to drive it into overtime before the Europeans show up. This will probably be...
Yeah, but Lau has ad. I dare say that that was a misplay from the Euros because they had the Uber advantage and 5 seconds left on their clock. All they have to do is get that Uber. They are getting very aggressive here. Otto dies again. Lau at 99 does use Uber. The Uber gets popped. This should be enough to win the round. All you have to do is keep these players off the point. You already have it capped. Lucas tries but cannot. And Witness Australia, against all odds, take the first round of this map.
Yeah, Witness Gaming Australia definitely coming back from what seemed like an unfortunate situation there. A minute of time in disadvantage. I mean, that's kind of difficult to come back from, especially when the Europeans are 5 seconds away from winning. They must have been a little bit stressed, but they came out on top at least for round 1, so I'm wondering if they're going to be able to maintain that momentum, use that win, keep their spirits high, and take another one. Hugo going to go down to Cookie early on in this fight, and now it looks like things are really kicking off. Poppy going for Silvo on the sniper. Will not be successful. Connor goes down though, but so do both soldiers for Witness EU. Poppy dies, so now it's pretty much free game for the Australians to move forward however quick they see fit, but they lose both of their soldier, or they lose down there as well. Connor spawning in, Hugo bombing in from behind. That's a nice rocket that he's landed onto the medic, and he's gonna be able to get the force.
Yeah, at this point, it's collecting some kills from the Europeans with the temporary Uber there, but Lau definitely getting out, not trying to get caught to Otto's Uber, and definitely a commanding position now for the Europeans. They came out of this round swinging. Not only did they get the cap first, but now they're sitting on it with a 30-second advantage and Uber advantage. Now, noticeably as well, keep your eyes on Silvo here. Definitely a potential timing here. Never mind. Bumps into Lucas. And that will be the spy revealed.
Down.
Foreman comes out, but Enrith just gets the solo force, all the distraction from the spy, and it is still a successful 4-man. So still a full minute earned from the Europeans. You're overall pretty happy with how things went there. Now they get to forward hold as well. They are definitely in the driver's seat this round, despite having now Uber disadvantage.
Yeah, the Europeans have really turned it around. I think what should have been a win for the Australians earlier has not gone their way, and the Australians are actually going to try and break out here. They go for the beam and use their Uber for it as well. They lose both soldiers to try and bust out, which, yeah, they are able to get out of the forward hold, but they're not able to get towards the point, which is what I really think they were hoping to do there. They were hoping to pick up some kills, get some good damage, and be able to push forward to the point. But now, after a bit of delay, they're going to be able to move through. Cookie's actually pinching from behind. That's 2 nice shots onto Otto, and he's going to get the kill! Otto goes down. Nice flank by Cookie. Poppy trading him out, but it doesn't matter anymore.
I thought that was going to go so horribly getting through the forward for the Australians because they just sacked both soldiers and used Uber anyway and didn't find the med with it. But yet the soldiers spawned fast enough to then roll out again and make more chaos happening, opening the door for Cookie. And now the Aussies in a decent enough position. It is 70 ad for them, but they have a lot of disadvantage as far as the clock is concerned. We might see, the Europeans going for a potential 4-man here. Poppy does bomb in deep. Hugo going to try to be following up. Bunkering up Lau in-house is snug as a bug. They are able to survive for the time being. A lot of cap time from the Euros in the meantime. And still not really close to getting Uber, however, for Otto.
Yeah, they're not really close at all, but the Australians do end up using, these sacks are successful, and the Europeans will see themselves with 60 Uber ad. The question is, will they be able to maintain it? Will the Europeans be able to protect Otto for long enough for them to be able to just waddle forward and use over the point like I'm thinking they're hoping to do? Lucas trying to get some pipes out. The bomber is in. It does get some damage off, but none onto Otto. Down will be taken out of the equation. Tomas able to pick up that kill, and the Europeans have recapped. The Australians are still at like 50 seconds of time disadvantage, and now with Connor dead, that's only going to extend their disad.
Yeah, this is definitely going quite poorly for the Australians because, honestly, EU is more than happy to use Uber to flip-flop the point because when you have that much time advantage on the clock, you can kind of just flip Ubers back and forth, trade the point back and forth, and your timer will hit 0 before the opponents. Not only did they successfully recap the point, but they did so without using Uber. So now they get to forward hold with even Ubers. It does get broken relatively easily. Seems more so that the Europeans just happy to play this 20 seconds left fight on the point.
Yeah, and it looks like the Europeans are maintaining this aggression. They are staying on the point. They're not going to give until they absolutely have to. And that Uber comes out from the Australians, which forces them back a little bit. But the Australians have no cap time. 3 seconds left on the clock for the Europeans to claim themselves around. The Australians are getting held too far back. Soldier goes in, but it's just too high in the air. And the score is tied 1-1 as the Europeans win themselves the first round. Or the second round, I should say.
Yep, and that was a pretty strong round for the Euros on top of that. I mean, they were comfortably ahead in time pretty much the entire round. Sure, their footing was a little shaky at times with a nice play from Cookie, for example, but still, they felt pretty comfortable there, tying things up.
Yeah, they felt very comfy going into that. Like 2 minutes worth of time ad. Yeah, that's a lot to work with. That is so much to work with, especially when you get the clock all the way down and you just uber on top of the point to prevent them from getting any cap. It's just good heads-up gameplay from the Europeans, but off the bat, they're going to lose Hugo, so they're down a player. Silvo coming in from below, trying to get some kind of pinch, isn't getting any kills, but does get a good decent chunk of damage that can't get followed up on, as Down and Silvo have both been removed from this fight, and the Australians are actually going to opt to push forward. The Europeans use their counter here, and they send the demo in behind, trying to juggle up the Uber players, but it's just not able to happen. Lucas gets some nice damage onto Lau, though. They're 14 HP. They get taken down by Hugo as they bomb in deep to get the kill, and the Europeans will flip the point for the first time and get incredible ad.
Yep, the fight it's going in the favor of EU for sure. I mean, the Aussies are finding their kills here and there, but the important pick of Auto is nowhere near in their crosshairs. So not only did they recap the point, but honestly, the Australians didn't cap the point that early on, despite the fact they had that very early pick onto Hugo, and by the time they were even able to convert the cap, they had already lost 2, denied those spawns. So by the time that AU is refighting, the Europeans already have time at it. It looks like Australians will be falling back onto Silvo Sniper again to try and make something happen.
Yeah, the Australians swapping over to Sniper. Tomas going to go down, but so will Down. That's also going to be Cookie falling. It's 2 for 1, 3 for 1 now as they find Connor as well. This is probably the sack that they're going for. It's going to be Enrith alive, trying to go for something, but just isn't able to really convert anything into a proper kill there.
Wow.
And
Hugo.
a soldier holding very close Hugo.
Ball bug? Oh, lands on the back. Okay. Ixie and Hugo both dying, though. This is now pretty decent. Lau, however, at 85%. So if Auto tries to take an exchange here, it might actually turn out to be ad, and things could get hairy for the Australians, but that time window is now gone. So these picks can be played off of with full confidence. The exchange comes out. A lot of flashes from the Europeans. And look at this. Cookie wants to go quite deep with it. Doesn't find too much value, but it is enough to convert the point, and yeah, being able to just cleanly cap the point in a position like that is exactly how you score rounds here on Koth Product.
Yeah, and I think the Aussies are breathing a sigh of relief, at least for the time being, knowing that they're able to get some time off of the clock, slowly decrease the disadvantage that they are in. It is going to be a lot of damage coming out from Enrith. Tomas going to go down. Silva will die, but so will Poppy. It's 1 for 2 so far, and it's leaning in favor of the Australians. Now it's going to be Cookie trying to pressure forward. The Australians really playing their positioning carefully here. They're not going too far forward, and they're not playing too far back. They're playing in a good middle-of-the-road position to aggress or immediately pull back if they need to. These Ubers are most likely going to even out, as I think the Europeans are planning, but it's going to be Cookie taking this Uber in deep towards Cliff, not quite able to find anything. This is a nothing burger Uber, so the Australians are now going to have to play back and potentially leave someone in to force the Europeans as they come in if they want to hold on to this point for a little bit longer.
Down, catching Hugo with the taunt, but interrupts it with a rocket. Finds the sink off of the bomb and sinks Auto for the drop. Unbelievable play there from Down, and suddenly the Australians with time now even. The Europeans maybe delaying the cap here. No, they deny Lucas, but Lau, 50% Uber advantage. A minute left for each team. There's still plenty of game to be played, still plenty of Uber to build for both teams, but still, this is going to be a close round.
Yeah, I'm thinking this round is going to be down to the wire. Poppy bombing in, gets some good damage onto the beam, but will get taken down. It's going to be Silva and Cookie cleaning house with both Ixie and both soldiers. It's now going to be Lucas trying to bomb in. Tomas finds Silva, but Down trades it out with Tomas and Auto. It's a full team wipe for the Europeans as the Australians move their way forward to claim the point and maybe get time ticking in their advantage.
Yes, and notably as well, they chose not to delay the spawn of Silvo, which you could honestly make the case there that, I mean, hey, this team really doesn't have a refight. They full wiped, so denying one scout is not that big. Maybe the extra 5 seconds of cap time is better, but nonetheless, the attempted forward hold break does find a kill onto Silvo and the Force, so only Pappy and Hugo dying there. Definitely a successful play from the Europeans, because keep in mind, on this map, teams will sack 4 players to try and get the Force. They only sacked 2 kills, got the Force, and a pick.
Yeah, and it looks like the Europeans are now trying to slowly nudge their way into the point. Sticks do get dead, nothing left on Pride, so it's just really a back and forth until the Europeans get this Uber online, and the Australians know this. They're probably going to send something in to try and get Auto to drop, unless they want to play it safe and maybe just go for a force. You know, I'm not too sure what the Australians' plan is, but with down jumping forward, I think I figured it out. That's going to be a rocket that does 40 onto Auto, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough. The Australians lose 3, and I believe that is supposed to be their 4-man. As 2 scouts end up surviving. They only find Lucas, and at least they've got a lot of cap time. It is going to go overtime.
Oh, this is such a great position for the Australians, because that actual overtime with Lau having Uber, it would take a catastrophe for this to go wrong for Witness AU. I love how they delayed the 4-man until just before. Uber comes out now. Are we seeing some cap time? Going to be a soldier on the point. There is a trap on the point still. Hasn't been dead. Lucas could get some value there. Tomas does die, however. Looks like Poppy will be next to go. And the Australians, they are playing so patiently here. They are not even pressing the cap. Lucas does find a nice kill onto Silvo, but it's really difficult to imagine this still not going in the favor of the Australians. Again, overtime plus an Uber charge equals win button.
That is exactly what that equals, and the Australians will get themselves another round lead against the Europeans. They are absolutely looking to take this to a map 3. It's really their only chance. That they have to, you know, move on to that decider, because whoever wins this, again, they get to move up and take on like a G6 for the grand final. So a lot is on the line here. And I'm thinking the Australians really want to, like I said earlier, crush the 4th place curse into a fine dust that can no longer be brought up. Poppy and Hugo going to be bombing forward. Good bomb from the soldiers, but they're not really going to be able to find anything outside of killing it down. Poppy goes down. That's a nice pipe from Lucas. Prevents anyone from pushing through connector here, but I don't think it's enough. Hugo's going to go down. So will Tomas, and now it's going to be Silva pressuring very aggressively, trying to force the beam back. Catches the scout in, but gets killed by Ixie.
Yeah, and Connor tried to find the med there during that. Well, Ixie was distracted. Unfortunately, unable to do so. Auto just barely surviving. As we do see the immediate 4-man on the re-aggression. Auto surfs up to Cliff and does preserve the Uber. I do like that sack from the Australians, because typically you see a 4-man play like that when it's disadvantage, right? But they recognized, hey, we've lost players. They are going to cap the point regardless, so we may as well try and sack right now and catch them off guard. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and because they sacked so many players, they now have to contend with a forward hold from Europe.
Yeah, and trying to break out of the forward hold on product is no easy feat. It is definitely challenging to do so, but it looks like the Australians are up for that challenge, and they are going to pretty quickly break their way through. Neither Uber has been taken out of the equation. 1 player down for each team, that player being a soldier as well for each team. So they're slowly moving their way forward, playing down a soldier. Both have spawned up now, so they could, depending on how quickly they come in, become a threat rather quickly. It looks like Cookie going to be running forward, trying to get the force out from the Europeans quickly, but just a lot of beefage. The Uber ends up coming out from the Australians first, and it's looking so much better for the Europeans. It is going to be Cookie going down to a rocket from Poppy. Hugo playing in connector now to try and pinch anyone that may have gone concrete. There is no one there, but this looks, no one's really won this fight yet. It's still actively ongoing, with each team really only losing 1 player. Now it's going to be Connor going down. This could be the domino that falls, that triggers the rest to fall down with it. Ixie goes down very early on, though. This could be beneficial for the Australians. They have Connor spawning up in 3 seconds. Silvo goes down, but there's some good damage coming from down through main to prevent that soldier from getting any further forward. The Australians, I don't think, can hold the point for any longer, but will get some good time added to their disad.
Yeah, the fact that the Aussies were able to cap there is definitely some nice consolation, as we see the other exchange coming out now, actually. And we do see down bombing behind as well. But during these fights where there's not a whole lot happening in favor of either team, it usually favors the team with control of point. In that case, it was EU. In this case, it's still EU, in fact. As trades coming down the line, Auto is really kind of just the important player here, and a nice force there actually from Enrith, I believe, finding a bomb timing to secure that force. At the very least, that chaos did not materialize in Uber disad. It's not materializing in a forward hold from EU, so the Aussies still have some fight in them, but things aren't looking super hot.
Yeah, things aren't looking too fantastic for them, but I'm sure they can make something happen.
Oh,
Never
just
mind
like that.
Yeah, Hugo and Poppy get in and drop 2 players almost instantaneously. Auto does go down, which can, make it a little bit easier for the Aussies to get back in for one last hurrah on this round. It is 1-2, so the score will simply tie up. The Australians have proven that they can take rounds off of Witness here, so I don't think they're too worried if they end up losing this one. This is going to be soldiers from the side of Witness AU, I think, bombing in now. That was going to be down. Moving forward, trying to get a kill, won't find anything, but Connor does take down Tomas, so it is going to be a trade. And I think now the Australians first to capture are going to play back and try and just get this Uber up.
I mean, trading out soldiers and turning it into a point conversion is absolutely fantastic. As Enrith's so weak, juggled in, ends up getting caught. That is a big pick because Demo is one of the main classes denying that cap pressure. So we might see some cap pressure ensue quite quickly here from the Europeans. Ubers are close to being built, so we will almost surely see an exchange happen when that occurs. As I say that, yep, it will be Connor, or excuse me, is that Cookie walking across, finding 2 kills during the exchange. That's going to be a very favorable post for Witness Gaming AU.
Yeah, the Australians have an incredibly opportunistic post here where they can just get as many kills as possible that are caught in. I mean, they had 2 right there. That's going to be Lucas and Poppy both going down. So the Australians are sitting pretty on the point right now. They don't really have to worry about much. The Uber ad situation is, I mean, it's kind of even. I wouldn't be surprised if the Europeans try to send in some kind of sack, though, just to make things a little bit easier for their repush, give them an incredibly, or try to get themselves a nice post so they can just get the cap one more time and tick down the 9 seconds that are left. But slowly but surely, the Europeans are making their way in, doing some good damage. Enrith on 74, but that's going to be a bomb coming in from Poppy right on top of Lau. That's going to be a lot of damage coming out.
Ooh, Auto 85, nowhere near getting.
This could be really risky for the Australians. It looks like Auto could potentially get out, but they get caught in. Tomas doesn't care. The lead takes down Icky.
Connor finds both
coming
scouts.
in, but he's not able to chase down Auto. The Europeans maintain their Uber.
Okay, now this is very, very close because 9 seconds left is not overtime, right? Auto does not just have the free win button. You just have the I'm probably almost certainly going to win button. However, if the Aussies can somehow survive this impending Uber, if they can somehow refight within the 9 seconds of Witness Gaming, EU capping the point, and their Uber fading, oh man, the Uber does get popped. It finds a kill. That is already quite bad for the Australians. The point flips as it always was going to. 7 seconds left now for the Australians. They bomb both soldiers in, landing on Lucas, finding a kill there. Poppy goes down as well. There's cap time. There's plenty of cap time. Now they can slow down. Now they can take the fight smart. Enrith getting bombed by Hugo, but dealt with by Cookie. The Uber is popped. Lau getting the Uber, and now with overtime for the red team, they're using this Uber, getting that free win button and securing the 3-1 lead here. 2 minutes. They were able to burn off the clock. They're a 2-minute deficit. And I don't think anyone was expecting to see this scoreline out of the Australians on product.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was either, but the crowd seemed to be very happy to see the Australians get themselves their 3rd round. Big applause for them, and rightfully so, burning off, like you said, 2 minutes of time to even make it mirrored for how much time each team had left on that point. But going into this round, both soldiers from the side of Witness AU going to be bombing forward. Some good damage coming out. The failed spoon from Connor onto the demo. Lucas is still alive with 64 health, but Auto, being the only one dying, could spell disaster for the Europeans. But they buy themselves a little bit more time as Ixie, I believe, is able to find Sil, though.
Yeah, and that medic pick means 2 things. It means that Witness don't want to cap the point immediately, so you're already earning a little bit of time there, I suppose. But it also means that they can't really forward hold either, so you get to refight pretty safely as we actually just see the Uber get popped. Is auto caught, takes some damage on the way out, but is able to get through the door. There is a chase,
Lucas,
however,
nice.
from the
Cookie
scout.
chasing.
Cookie is
He's
in on
in.
auto.
It's
He's
one
trying to
bullet.
juggle around.
Just one
So
more.
weak.
Ah!
Does go down.
Oh!
What a live from auto there. And as well, Lau, quite weak. I think Hugo or Lucas or someone got in on them. Nonetheless, as well, EU never capped during that, so that whole time, 40 seconds, EU were able to secure a lot of time advantage.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation to find yourself in if you are Cookie, but you bought a good amount of time for your team to at least get relatively close to having even Uber. I think the Europeans are most likely going to just rip this over. They know it's still a decent enough amount of ad where they can and potentially catch other beam quickly.
Oh my
Enrith is going to go down. Ixie will go down as well. The Uber gets popped out from the Europeans, but the Australians are close to getting as well. Soldier very weak on grass. That's going to be down, being deleted. Connor dying as well. The Australians, while they have Uber, aren't going to be able to use it anytime soon, but absolutely in their next fight, it's going to be the Europeans' goal to force it out as early as possible.
Yep, and breaking it forward with the Uber can be a little sketchy because, like, do you use or do you not? They do opt for that Pyro, a very common off-class to see here, breaking this forward hold on product, going grass side. They do find a kill onto Poppy. Hugo's quite weak as well, not involved in the fight. Uber gets popped, however, and it's a big chase. Double Soldier landing in Cliff. Auto is completely caught here. How many more kills are they going to get? Is Lau going to survive? Those are the questions. Lau does end up dying. And now it's pure scrap. 2 scouts, as they can shoot at the same thing at the same time, then that's a very deadly combo, especially against players without a medic. So it does look like overall a failed Uber from the Australians. They got what they wanted during the Uber, but they definitely didn't in the post-Uber.
Yeah, that post just looks super unfortunate for them. Like you said, did not get what they wanted in their post. Their initial Uber was fine. They got what they were looking for, but they just couldn't get themselves together for that post, and it really ended up biting them. So they're going to be down a minute off the clock. They need to move forward quickly and confidently if they really want to be able to hold on to this point. There's going to be a bomb coming in from Hugo, though. We'll take down with the help of Ixie. That is a trade, though, as Connor is able to find it. Soldier for Scout. Not the best trade in the books, but definitely something to work with. Hugo goes down as well. So this is definitely a situation where the Australians want to move forward. They still have these players down. They're still spawning. Now it's going to be Poppy dying as well. Both of Soldiers on the side of Witness Australia are very weak. And yeah, that Uber getting forced is going to be very
Lucas just bombs in and just gets completely shut down by Cookie, who is still Ubered at the time. Tomas is on the back lines, raising hell. And taking the 1v1, Enrith pulling out the melee. This is very much a fight that favors a scout, but yet Enrith able to put the moves on, survive just long enough, catch the bow, and Silvo comes back. And at this point, the point does finally get capped from the Australians, finding a nice kill onto Hugo. Things are looking okay, but again, they are down on the clock. They really need to hold things together here if they want to close out the map right now.
Yeah, if they want to close out this map, they want to move on to a third map, and really fight. Put everything on the table there. I guess you could say. They're wanting it. They want it bad, and they need it if they want any hope of fighting like a G6 in the grand finals. So hopefully, for the Australians, they'll be able to, get themselves into a good position to win. But with both Down and Connor being dead, it will be hard for them to continue holding the point. And that's a nice shot from Hugo, taking down the scout there. No way! Hugo with the Minecraft kill onto Enrith, then kill binding, or not even kill binding, using the taunt and taking himself out. I mean, that's just disrespectful.
Yeah, and at this point, 15 seconds left while getting forward held. Granted, the other team is down a soldier, so it's a little easier to get through, but still definitely not comfortable. And Witness AU put themselves into this position by opting to go for that 4-man, opting to get Lau out. Exchange does get popped. It's going to be a longer Uber for the Euros. Still enough cap time for the Aussies that now time is a little comfier. We have the bomb in from Down, unable to materialize into too much, but Ixie is found, and Lucas going down is an important pick. However, Lau dying means that now the Australians have no heals whatsoever. This is going to be a very difficult fight. Honestly, at this point, remember that equation. Overtime plus an Uber charge equals a win. So as long as Auto survives here, it should be very, very easy for Witness Gaming EU to win this round, regardless of what's happening right now, regardless of how many kills Silvo and Down can find, regardless of whether they cap this point or not. It really does just come down to Auto having that Uber.
Yeah, if Auto can keep this Uber, it will be incredibly beneficial for the Europeans. What really Australians can only really mess that up, or the Europeans can really only mess that up if they just can't kill the Australians or they try and kite it out. The Australians will now flip the point. They know that Witness EU has that Uber, and they're anticipating the push, and they're just trying to play a little bit further back. Some good damage coming out from Enrith and the soldiers, but from the looks of it, they're just playing back a little bit. They have to keep their bodies on that point with this cap going up. The Europeans now Uber forward. There's nothing the Australians can really do here, I don't think, unless maybe they're able to get in and get some miracle plays. Lau goes down. Now the scout, it's just Silvo alive, and the Europeans will get themselves their second round win. And it is still map point, and we're having a pause now, I would presume, from the Australians.
Yes. Yep, Silvo Cookie going for the tack pause here. I mean, yeah, that's just how broken overtime is we are seeing there. We see these teams popping Uber back and forth, and some of them turn out quite well, some of them not so much. Some of them, the Uber itself is good, but the post it's bad, others not so much. Overtime changes all of that, right? The difference is that if there's even 1 second left on the clock, then the other team has some type of kite, right? They get to do something. They get to afford some amount of time with which they don't need a body on the point, otherwise they die. With overtime, that is simply not the case. And when you are Ubered on the point in an overtime situation, you know that the other team, beyond a reasonable doubt, has to send someone on the point to stand there, and that is the freest kill against Ubered players, and that will just snowball. So that's what we're seeing here, and that's why having this time advantage early on is so nice, because towards the end there, I mean, both Witnesses were honestly trading point back and forth relatively often. So we actually now have a tech pause coming out from Tomas, so we won't be going quite yet. But yeah, flipping the point back and forth, it ended up hitting overtime first for EU, and that made all the difference. So that's why having time advantage can be such a nice thing to have on product.
Yeah, and I mean, time advantage is a nice thing to have in general, especially on a map like Product, but I think it's amplified even more so because it's Product. This map it can be difficult at times to really get yourself to the point and be able to maintain control of it. So hopefully the Australians will be able to figure out what went wrong for them this time around, see what mistakes they made. But I mean, at this point, it's really up to the Europeans to hold things down because they need to get themselves up in the score. They need to make it 3-3 before they can get, close to celebrating, because they are down a round still. But going into this next round, 3-2 in favor of the Australians, and I think the Europeans are showing up ready to make it 3-3.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just looking at the mid-fight right now, and on Koth, you don't usually have such aggressive mid-fight plans as you do on a 5 CP, because when you lose players, I mean, that's a disadvantage you have to deal with. So spam is definitely the name of the game, and the spam is certainly going in the favor of Witness Gaming EU. They're getting a lot of damage on Enrith in particular. And actually, bomb out from Down, followed up from Connor. It's not really getting anything, and in the meantime, the flank was wide open. Hugo finding that opportunity, cleaning up Connor. Oh man, a bow onto Silvo is able to prolong his death. Enrith being found, however, things are really not going well for the Australians, and it will certainly be a first mid-cap from the Europeans. Auto was quite weak there for a moment, but they have stabilized.
Yeah, it looks like the Australians, though, don't want them to be too comfy. They're going in. They will get the force, but it's going to be a much, much better Uber for the Europeans. The Australians are now pushing back. They know the Uber's about to fade, and it does. 20 seconds off the clock so far for the Europeans, and the Australians are really struggling to get themselves to move forward. Demo by Dogbread, all on his lonesome. It's just Enrith over there on 11 HP. It's going to get taken down by Lucas as the pipe connects. That's going to be Lucas trying to fight the scout in his face. Cookie going to go down. That's 3 players dead for the side of the Australians. So there's really nothing they can do anymore. They've got to back away.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, more and more time ticking in the favor of EU. They are trying to get through Cliff, are able to do so successfully. Typically, Cliff, a door that a demo holds, but takes a while for a demo to get there. So time is kind of the name of the game for how quickly you can set up that powerful forward hold. Ubers are still even because Lau survived after the exchange. Catching a pipe, however, you might see some aggression come out from the Europeans. Do see a bit of a cross on point, but it looked like the flank shove was happening kind of out of sync there, so they were forced to back up as that pipe hit. As I say that, however, sending bodies forward from the Australians, they are able to find the force for 2 kills. Down committing as well makes it 3, and Enrith and Cookie decide to, or Silvo decide to say, hey, let's make it a full 5-man. Lau actually did get forced during that. I missed that. So at the very least, it's going to be even Ubers. Lucas dead means that unlikely to see a particularly strong forward hold from the Euros, but still they are very much commanding this round.
Yeah, they absolutely are in control of this round. The Australians haven't even touched the point yet outside of the initial fight, and they're at a 2-minute disadvantage now. The clock is just ever ticking against them. It's really unfortunate to see that the Australians just haven't been able to get themselves into good forward position so far where they can maintain their aggression until now, it seems, as they've pressured the Europeans back. Yes. Getting that kill onto Ixie is going to be just enough, and the Ubers will be even, so they should be able to hold, especially with Silvo up on Sniper.
Yes. Silvo on Sniper is definitely a very disruptive class to bring out here. It's going to force Witness EU to adjust to that, as Witness just going to run it down for this exchange directly into the bodies. Lau with a pretty long milk, but a lot of flashes now to compensate. Tomas staying in so long, finds Enrith in the post, but because of that, Otto and Tomas both instantly die as Uber fades. It's just a matter of if Lau can stay alive. Full HP at the moment, but getting bombed by Hugo. Cookie doing such a great job of dealing with all these threats. Silvo survived as well, so now there's going to be a pesky sniper in a pretty forward position as well. It's looking okay for the time being for the Australians, but overall in the macro sense, as far as this round is concerned, still 2 minutes. At this point, a 1-minute deficit, something you have to claw back.
Yeah, that is a fantastic shot that just came out from Silvo there. Landing that headshot will absolutely slow down the Europeans. Enrith goes down, but so does Poppy and Hugo. No soldiers alive for the Europeans. It does look like Down tries to go in, but does get killed by Ixie. And now the Australians are just trying to maintain the control they have on this point so far. They have to be forward, though. They have to command their presence, because if they're not, the Europeans are just going to walk forward. They use the Uber over the point. They're trying to find Otto early on, so he can't walk away with the Uber, but Cookie gets levitated and isn't able to chase properly. Otto survives. Lau dies in post. Poppy goes down, but this just isn't looking good for the Australians in any capacity.
Yeah, and 30 seconds left for Witness EU means that Lau will not have enough time to build an Uber, meaning the longer that Otto can hold on to this Uber, the more likely you're going to be able to have that win position of overtime plus Uber advantage. Also, as well, when the exchange or the Uber got popped from Lau, it was just a microsecond too late. They were trying to stop the point from being capped. Oh my God, the Uber comes out, it finds Lau. Yeah, this is looking like a potential tie game from EU. It's a little too early to call, but still, I mean, it's hard to imagine with these 10 seconds left after a full wipe. EU are definitely looking to just clean things up here.
Yeah, it just feels like there's no real way this round could go in the Australians' favor. They have so much time disad. They don't have players that are able to get to the point quick enough. They're actively getting stuffed in main. So with nobody able to reach the point, the Europeans tie up the game 3-3, and there is one more round, the penultimate round, that will determine whether or not the Europeans move up to fight like a G6 in the grand finals later today, or if the Australians send it to map 3.
Yeah, and this is looking like a potential 3-round comeback from the Europeans. Remember, this was 3-1 once upon a time. Silvo actually rolled out on Sniper, and that first shot is going to bring out the immediate aggression double bomb from the Europeans. Auto very weak, but both of AU's soldiers are dead, so there's no one to bomb off of that damage. In fact, I suspect the bombers are what caused the damage. Having those 2 soldiers die, no medics dying on either team. EU will just be capping the point and having the clock tick for them now.
Silvo tries to go for the headshot, but Beefs gets some good damage onto the med, but now Lau is dead. That's 3 players down for the Europeans, so if they wanted to try and maybe throw something quick, they could have, but that window has long since closed, and Silvo doing the spinnies as they're missing the frustration we all share. But they're able to cap the point, and they're able to at least get some time off the clock, trim down their time disad. But the Europeans looking to rip the super in quick. They're going to. Lucas bombing forward, lands on China, gets some good stickies behind the sniper.
Yep, and they're getting multiple kills with the super, but notably not finding Lau, which is really the important one. And, I mean, it's still early into this round. The fact that Witness AU, I think, were able to find a pick during that means that the cap is going to be a little delayed there. They don't want to deny their spawner and give a temporary player advantage on the refight. Still plenty of TF2 to be played. 2 minutes for both teams. Time pretty much even as the Uber actually gets popped from Lau through the forward hold. A deep bomb from Anrith chasing Auto, who does not have. Anrith going down, however, to Tomas. And Auto is able to slip out, it seems. Lau is still alive, however, which is definitely important for the Australians. They're going to be able to convert the point here. They do not want to deny the spawn of downs. They're going to wait for a moment. Again, time pretty close here. 30 ad for Auto. This is looking like a very even round so far.
Yeah, this round is looking very, very even, much, much closer than every round we've seen before it, really. And how fitting for the closest round to be the one that decides the winner of the map. So I can't complain, but early on, some good damage from the Australians onto the Europeans, but looks like in the health department, the Europeans have come out on top. Connor going for the spoon does miss, and now the Uber coming out from the Europeans are chasing deep, and they get
Lau.
Can Lau survive? Lau gets to the spawn just in time. Silvo finds 2, meanwhile.
Oh my God, Silvo on the flank.
3. He weakens Tomas enough for down to be able to hit the final rocket. That's a 3K from Silvo, finding Auto.
Eyes on Ixie, because this is a scout who's about to make a play and really needs one right now. Not healthy at all. Gets cleared. It's fighting Connor. Gets dealt with. Fantastic heads-up play there from the Australians, just clearing their corners. And they had the point this whole time. This very much favors them. This might be the first time they've been in control for a round, as the 4-man comes out and does not get the force. Lau perfectly comfortable. 90 HP. He's seen worse. It's only going to be Tomas on China getting dealt with. Goes down last, and again, the Australians have had the point this whole time. Auto only at 40% Uber. Will have Uber by the time that the Australians hit overtime, but still pretty decent advantage right now for AU.
Yeah, the Australians are sitting in a great position right now, as they have about a minute and a half worth of time ad that they are slowly adding on to. And it's really not looking great for the Europeans. They've been having to slowly get close to Uber this entire time, while the clock has just been ticking down more and more for the Australians. But now with that Uber finally in part of the equation, they are going to rip it forward. They use 50% to try and get the force out, but it's looking like a much better order, or much better Uber for the Australians in this very close game, or this very close rounded game. 3-3 right now.
Okay,
the Australians got to be able to find Poppy. Now Hugo,
who on the flank
to
as
go behind,
well,
trying to pinch the soldier. They get one. It's 2 players down for each team right now. The Europeans have a Lucas. That's going to be a big advantage for them. They have their demo. They can get crazy good damage. What a pipe from Lucas, taking down Lau. The Europeans have saved themselves.
Yeah, but again, it looks good for them right now. Lau just dying there is even better. Ooh, actually, Solo finding a nice kill there. Probably going to disrupt a forward hold, but still, overtime is so powerful because, again, you're going to need a body on the point if things go wrong. So even though it's it's still a minute and 40, plenty of time for Lau to build multiple Ubers. And look at this cap time. They're just capping in front of them, bringing out the bombs.
Top of it.
Auto didn't even have Uber.
Nobody's
cap.
The Australians are wide for the. Oh my God.
96% on Auto there, so close to being able to hold, but just unable to. What a miracle map here from the Cinderella team of Witness Gaming AU.
Fantastic gameplay all around, managing to win in a one-round dub to extend the series of maps where we move on to, I believe it was Metalworks for map 3, moving in from Koth to 5CP. So this is going to be a very interesting final match, as both teams are really going to have to give it their all if they want any hope of moving on to fight like a G6.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I'm not sure how Metalworks is going to go because, I mean, I will fully admit that I was thinking EU just had it here on product. It was their map pick. It was a map that the Australians looked uncomfortable on based on their banning pattern, right? I don't think we had seen them play it necessarily. But they're considered the very DM region in general in a DM team.
Yeah.
Which tends to favor Koth gameplay. Now, granted, I think calling them the DM region is not particularly accurate in the sense that they seem like a very pace and confidence team, rather, which definitely can be favorable on Koth. I mean, there were positions where they had a sniper and still felt totally comfortable sending soldier sacks. That's not something you really see. Usually teams go into like one thing or another, but if you're not expecting the soldier bomb because they have the sniper, then suddenly it works out. I mean, that's still good for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The Australians really just seem to lock in for this one here, and they, understandably so, I mean, if they hadn't played like they did, played at their, well, I can't say best because I assume we haven't seen their best. They're saving that for if they move up into the grand finals. But we've seen them play exceptionally well. They've been doing everything they can to make things work. But our analyst desk is ready to look over that match, so we'll be throwing you over to them right now.
Thank you, ecchymoses. We are back here on the desk. We are joined once again by Sandblast, by Marmaloo, and what a game that was. 4-3, all the way down to the wire. We had double OTs on some of the rounds. It was an absolute bloodbath. But the Australians, they fought on, and they live on for one final map, potentially, before they can face a final against G6. We're going to game 3. What do we make of this fight back?
I mean, I didn't expect it. I mean, just based on how they were playing Koth against some of the other teams, I mean, they pulled out the sniper, which I expected, and, you know, that definitely played a little bit of an impact, you know, getting a couple key picks onto Auto and Tomas getting dropped a couple times. But, man, they played really, really well. They had great Ubers. Lau played exceptional that game. He had great positioning, wasn't getting caught out in these post Ubers, and ended up clinching at 4-3. Super close game. Again, did not expect that scoreline. I thought the Europeans were going to probably walk away 4-1, 4-2 at the worst.
Yeah, no, I got the prediction right. But I also, back ahead, was not expecting that. But they picked it for a reason, or they let it through for a reason. And once again, the trend of losing your map pick has continued. And we're on Metalworks. And previously, we have talked about Metalworks being that kind of weird map that Europe may be struggling on, Australia might struggle on. Both teams have let it through, so there must be something else they're scared of. And I am curious to see. This will be most likely a pretty slow game. That's just how a lot of these points work out. But I really am excited to see, because I know sometimes, like, some teams have, I know the Europeans have done like double fast rollout and things on process. On this map, I could definitely see people going all through that top left door and just sending it right away to get that space. And a lot of this mid is going to be all about valuing your health versus space and kind of being able to lock people out. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's about as polar opposite of a game as you can get to product, right? This product, it was fast, it was energetic. Metalworks besides the midpoints, these rounds can slow down. It's a lot of pressuring for those sacks, and especially in the last point, it's a real tough nut to crack. But the Europeans, I think, have looked pretty good so far. Maybe not on Metalworks. It's not a map I've seen them play yet, but on the likes of your Snake Waters, other maps where there's traditionally hard last points to break into, they're doing well. Is that maybe a good sign?
I mean, this is a little bit harder of last pushed or last hold to kind of break. So again, with that continuous overtime, it's probably it could be a low scoring game. I mean, especially with how, Sunshine kind of went, Witness Gaming ran away with it a little bit. It looks like the Aussies kind of woke up a little bit. So hopefully we have a little bit different of a result here. I mean, at this point, it can go either way. I mean, truthfully, especially on a map like Metalworks where your explosive classes have a pretty big responsibility, especially on these mids, huge open skyboxes where, making sure you can deny space from scouts to kind of just take control of, the top of the point. So, I mean, I don't know what to really think going into it.
Yeah, I definitely am more worried about Australia with their last pushes. We've seen a lot of little things like that. Their last pushes, they're breaking the stalemates have been struggling with, where I'm more worried for them than Europe on that side. But this is a map that is going to allow for flank plays. You can push behind, you can get back caps. And if teams want to make it scrappy, they can make it a little bit scrappy. But there's some decent sniper angles. Sniper's seen a good amount.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out, right, is we've seen obviously the growth of this Australian team, and the soldiers. Maybe you said earlier on, and I agree, they sort of started off quietly, and they've got better and better and better and stronger. Metalworks is a map where those players can really have some playmaking potential, and the form they've been on, particularly in this series, I think has been very good. Down in particular, I think has had some really high impact moments. Like, do we think that's maybe against obviously Pappy and Hugo, a great duo? Do we think they're gonna perhaps match up?
I mean, yeah, I think the soldier lineup is going to be key going into this. I mean, I think Down and Connor and both Poppy and Hugo are probably going to be neck and neck. I mean, just looking at the logs, that's even as a stat line you're going to pretty much get across. I don't know if you want to throw them on screen, but like Cookie had like 56 kills, Tomas had 56 kills. The soldiers are pretty much neck and neck with everything.
They were going band for band.
Yeah, literally, they're going band for band. So on a map like Metalworks where explosive classes are very highly valued, it's going to come down to how can either team deny space from them? How are they going to synchronize their bombs on mids? Are we going to see a lot of high bombs? Are we going to see that speed shot through lower main onto the demo at the start of the mids? There's tons of different ways you could play this map, and it is probably one of the worst maps to get mid to lasted on. It's up there with Gully Wash, I'd say. But again, the benefit is it is a pretty hard last to crack. So again, Marmaloo's right. Australia did have a couple harder or a couple last pushes that did fail on some of these 5CP maps. So we'll see if that Silvo sniper is going to be a big factor, because Metalworks is a pretty decent sniper map as well.
Yeah, and the main thing is the European last pushes are so focused on the point, while the Australians have not. And if they can't focus point on this map, everyone is just going to run away. But I think the main matchup that we should be looking at is just Lucas versus Enrith. We were talking about Enrith is more of a consistent, a solid demo who's not going to do anything too crazy and is always just going to be there. While Lucas, if you let him go, he's going to win this map. The mids especially. If he can just sit on that top door and hurl stickies on the lower door while Poppy and Hugo take the space, it's going to be over every mid. So I'm really excited to see how the soldiers and the rest of Australia deal with Lucas's aggression.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. Lucas has he's been, yeah, like you see, he's kind of a hit and miss sort of player. Some rounds, especially on Koth, round to round, he gets different impact depending on how well he's getting shut down. But yeah, everything a bit more consistent. Are we I guess, do we sort of roll to predictions? Do we think like how do we predict this even? Like, I don't know that I was convinced the Europeans had it on product. It's their pick, but Metalworks, it's such an unknown. I'm finding it a tough one to call.
I'm leaning 3-2 to Europe. I don't know if I have faith in the Australian last pushes and all that. The few opportunities they do get, they just blunder it and then they just lose the round from that point. But I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I'm going to say 3-2 to Witness Gaming Europe.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it'd be high scoring either. I mean, historically, this map goes to time a lot. I want to say I honestly believe coming off of an insane win like that. I mean, I think the mental from the Australians right now is probably higher than it was beating Froyo, in my opinion, just because now they know, like, we're about to be on an international grand stage if we take one more map. Like, I would honestly say, man, I would give it like Australia 3-1 or 3-2. I mean, I think that coming off a pretty big win, you're all playing hot. Like, your scouts are dropping 50-plus frags. So I think other than that, I want to give it to Australia 3-2.
Oh, 3-2 either way. I guess I get the deciding vote then in that case. I have to back my guys, at Witness. I think
Valid.
they've had so many series in their careers at this point on LAN, must-win games. They find a way every time. They're so consistent in their style. I think on the big moments like this, that's really what they need. Despite the energy the Australians might be having, Metalworks are going to do this. It's how they won Poland back a couple of months ago. I think the Europeans are going to take this one. I'm going to go for a 3-1.
All right.
I think it's going to be fairly comfortable. Maybe a bit of a late slip. But now we've got the predictions done. We can send it over to our casters. Take us away, Wild Rumpus and ecchymoses.
And hello again, everyone. We are back again, Eki and Wild Rumpus, to cast the final deciding map of this best of 3 series between the 2 Witness teams. This is really what it all boils down to at this point. It is on, the pressure is on both of these teams. I think the Australians feeling it probably a little bit more than the Europeans. The Europeans,
maybe,
like our analyst said, have played a lot of series like this at LANs. They're comfy. They know what they're trying to do. And I don't know.
I wonder, though, because Witness Gaming EU were looking like the favorites to win the entire tournament. And here they are back against the wall in losers finals. I think that they came here with something to prove, particularly against Froyo, which unfortunately they weren't able to meet in bracket, but I think proved pretty confidently in their matchups that they were here to play. However, with that being said, I don't know if Witness Gaming EU is happy to get third. I know that Witness AU is more than happy with third. They're playing with the house's money at this point. They have done more than they ever expected to at this event. So I wonder if the pressure is almost off a little bit for them, because if you just play good TF2 here, no matter what the outcome is, you don't have to be scared of it. You don't have to be nervous or anything because you're happy. Whereas EU, you might have some expectations, right?
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point. I didn't even think, because they don't have to worry about much. They made history. They broke the 4th place curse. They get 3rd place no matter what happens here. The Australians have done far more than I think they were expected to. Like you said, they've exceeded expectation. So, yeah, I guess the pressure might be a little bit off for them. They might not be feeling it as much as the Europeans, who, like you said, have things to prove. They have something to uphold. They're here to take the whole LAN away. They're trying to make it a European LAN dubski, and they have to hold on to that confidence the entire time. They have to hold on to their. They have to keep playing the way that they are playing, and keep the aggression up, keep everything fast-paced, keep their opponents guessing. But I do think we're going to be going live here for the first round of the final game in this best of 3 series. The demos are rolling out. We're just waiting for things to get thrown over to the game here.
There we go.
All right, very early on, nothing too crazy happening. It looks like they've kind of just been stalling a little bit. Australia is kind of weak. Enrith is very low. We'll end up getting taken down by a rocket from Poppy. That's actually going to be a soldier pushing forward, trying to bully the Australians back. Ixie will be able to find Silvo as well. So while maybe not the most commanding win from the Europeans, not able to take down Lao, looks like they're going to be able to. Okay.
Cookie just said, hey, I'm going to go trade with you. And Poppy's like, oh, really? Come on.
With little old me, you're going to trade.
Yeah, that was a funny little interaction. It is even Ubers, though. Interestingly, with Cookie being dead, the gun is going to be a little slow to go up, even though Silvo is actually the flank scout, so not sure. The bomb in is going to land. Oh, my God. It's like a triple commit immediately, actually. Enrith did go down during that, as did Silvo, but sacking a scout, soldier, and demo. Metalworks last is a very difficult last to break, and a 3/4-man sack is quickly becoming a more popular option for breaking last holds, because you get the game moving, you're forcing the other team to consider pushing out off of the kills, and pushing out a Metalworks last is risky. Things can go wrong. It can be quite difficult. So that looked like what Witness EU were attempting there is a 3-man stack. It looked like Lucas was not caught. He was very much committing and bombing in.
Yeah, that was just good commitment from the Europeans, taking control of the situation as best as they possibly could. And now we're watching them on Australia's last. You know, they're knocking on their door, asking if they can come in. And right now the Australians are saying no. So Witness really needs to try and pressure for some kind of sack. I think they're buffing their soldiers up for this. That's going to be Hugo jumping through towards Toxic. Now Poppy going off the wall, curving towards the gun, landing on the point. That's some nice damage onto the point, but it's not going to be enough. Hugo can't follow up on it, so that's a 2-man for nothing right now.
Yeah, double soldier, and look at this. It doesn't even seem like anyone is going to be counter-sacking from Witness AU. And this is something that was happening on Snakewater in their match against Ball's team, is that, yeah, they just weren't sending that guy off of last. I suppose they're just holding up for the round reset, which round is only halfway done at this point. 2 minutes is still plenty of time for things to happen. So sometimes you like taking those opportunities to maybe get a force on the other team and get through, as we see another double soldier sack coming out again, but the gun deals with that pretty safely, I'll say. Lau not really too uncomfortable.
Yeah, Lau is still relaxing while, you know, swatting away the mosquitoes that are trying to land on him. I mean, right now, he just has so much protection around him. He's got the scouts, he's got the gun. I mean, this guy is in a fortress at the moment, and Witness really needs to try and break through, maybe try something a little bit different than the double soldier, maybe rip a 4-man if you really want to, try and tempt the Australians to push out, but really you need to try and get this Uber out of the equation, because the Sentry, you know, everything that could be dealt with, but this meta with the Uber is just going to be hard to try and make up for.
Ooh,
but
that was a
very
decent
close
attempt. Notably as well, I'm looking, okay, so it looks like Poppy exploded, but Hugo was wearing the man-treads. And man-treads are a pretty good unlock on this point, because that gun is doing a lot of legwork as far as denying your bomb. Remember, denying a bomb is not so much about killing the soldier before he lands, although a sentry gun is quite good at that. It's more so about physically knocking them away from your medic so you're not getting high damage rockets on them. With the man-treads and reducing all that knockback, that is actually much less of a factor. So it looks like Poppy will be on gunboats, but maybe it's still man-tread. Nope, double gunboats. Okay, so they might be planning something else now.
Yeah, this might be, you know, some kind of 4-man. Oh, they're actually just going to end up using this Uber. I don't think that's what they wanted to do, but they end up doing it anyway. I think the sentry's been taken down, and yes, it has, but really, the Europeans can't do anything with this now. They'd have to push into a last with a sentry that's being rebuilt and an entire team that has full Uber ad against you. The Australians, they don't care about all that ad. They're just going to sit here. They're going to let the Europeans continue to try and push in, and they're going to let this round reset. And that's honestly the best decision.
Cookie with the crits deciding, hey, I kind of want to kill for the log here. I know there's nothing they can do to possibly avoid this round from resetting, so I'll run in with that that prime glow stick. But solid defense overall, I would say, for Witness AU. I mean, the man-tread sacks, one of them was a little sketchy there. May have been able to get Lau with some better rockets. So something to look out for the Australians, and maybe something to consider as well for the Europeans. But nonetheless, we are looking at map number 2, or excuse me, mid number 2, still tie game.
Yeah, it is still a tie game, about 5.5 minutes for that first round, just judging off of the total time left in the game. But very early on, this mid doesn't really look to be leaning in favor of anyone. I guess if you had to look in separate departments, it would be the health department leaning in favor of the Europeans right now.
Wow.
Now the player department as well, as they're able to find Lau. Hugo in with a huge bomb. Ixie going to be able to take down as well. And it's just trade for trade. It is a 3v3, and this is Cookie pinching from behind. Going to be able to get a lot of good damage. That's going to be Silva able to clean up the kill, but Ixie finds 3 and avenges their beam.
Yeah, just great play there from Witness Australia's scouts to find that med kill, because Lau died so early and the health was not great from anyone on red, so being able to somehow find a salvage onto the other team's beam is really remarkable. That being said, obviously the Europeans still won the mid, but I think they were really hoping to win by a lot more and really hoping to have Uber advantage here and maybe be in a mid to last position, which they are not.
Yeah, the Europeans, I think, are hoping to just, roll through this as quickly as possible. And like you said, that mid-win did not give them exactly what they were looking for to get themselves into that kind of position.
I think they want to play this ad as well. It is 30 ad because Lau died so much sooner. They might just be popping through house here. They're peeking it at the very least.
Hugo's just eating so much spam. Gonna have to back away as well. So the Europeans, or the Australians actually, are ripping it through. It's going to be, I think this is more of just like a make space Uber, bully them away, but this might not be the greatest decision. The Europeans are about to get their own Uber, and they're gonna rip it pretty quick in response as well, I would assume. Going through main, now they're holding it for a little bit longer. I think they're actually looking to reclaim mid without having to use Uber at all. And they actually find down. Oh no, this can't
it's a lot of cap time on mid. Notably, mid never got capped, which is quite bad for the Australians. So it looked like Cookie was maybe looking for an attempt there to back cap mid, which is definitely an enticing play right now for the Australians because you are facing down Disad on second. Cookie does get cleaned out. Yeah, now it's still slight add into last. I mean, 85% on Lau will likely be getting Uber during a post. We'll see. It looks like Tomas does still want to take space. This might just be space transitioning into a sack rather than actually popping Uber. Tomas pressuring the point. That's going to draw some bodies in for the bomb. Hugo landing on the medic, gets the force and a kill on down as well. Fantastic job there from Tomas and Hugo. Good teamwork. And now Otto going to have full Uber advantage. Off of the full wipe, Witness AU are able to refight too, but we're really only expecting to have this point temporarily.
Yeah, I don't think the Australians can really do much to hold this. You can already see they're backing up a little bit, playing towards that shutter, ready to get out, and Lucas just stares at the traps, can't clear them, unfortunately, so gets blown up. So that will slow down the Europeans a bit longer, and honestly, I think that will give the Australians a little bit more time. They honestly could get Uber here before the Europeans even push in, because the Europeans haven't postured themselves in a position that would allow them to push and maybe kill Lau before they get Uber. But they're going to be using in here, and Lau has that Uber still ready. They get the Uber to get popped out. Enrisen launches himself above Banana. Can't find anything, but they are going to be able to mop up 2 kills nonetheless, and that will be a successful last hold from the Australians, slowly turning in to potentially converting second and actually being able to hold it this time.
Okay, I do want to highlight something that Witness AU did when they refought second while it was full disad, because if it was intentional, then it might be the first time I've seen it in a really, really smart play. They did not cap second. They left it so close to being cappable, but didn't cap it. And the reason being, if you cap it, then the other team just pushes in, recaps, and takes their Uber as normal. You have nothing to work with. If you have cap time on second, then the other team pushing forward, they perpetually have to worry about a back cap completely squandering their push. Because as we've seen earlier in this series, when second gets capped or stopped or something, when second belongs to the other team, well, you can't do anything on last. It doesn't matter how many kills or how much Uber you have or anything like that. So by setting up that back cap play, I do think that they slowed down Witness EU and really put themselves in a position to have something to work with.
Yeah, and that is a sack attempt from Hugo. Gets piped by Enrith, and that will be Cookie coming in to clean up the rest. So that means the sack from Witness EU is over. They can't really afford to send anything else in. The Australians haven't sent a counter, and they really don't need to. They can really just, sit back for a little bit, relax, and wait for the Europeans to either get through, and maybe they come in as the Europeans use and try and go for the exchange on 2 and win to fight mid. There's a lot of things that could go on here, and the Australians really aren't posturing themselves as far forward as they probably could be. That's a bomb coming in from Poppy. Doesn't find anyone or anything to land on and gets obliterated in the corner. Connor going to be able to mop up that kill, so that's just another sack sent in from the Europeans that has nothing to show for it.
It does kind of surprise me that Witness Australia don't counter sack, because I mean they seem so aggressive and loose with their soldiers in so many other settings, and they feel free to let them go. So it surprises me that for a counter sack where, yes, you do have a temporary advantage. You do usually have a kill, sometimes 2 kills. And if you're taking that counter sack quickly, you can catch players off guard and maybe convert even more kills. It just seems like you're leaving something on the table by letting the other team sack into you and not responding in any fashion. But as I say that, down is going to be sinking. It's a double soldier bomb into alley. A lot of damage on these players, but no kills, shockingly actually, no kills from the bombers or the bombies. What a shot there from Enrith, gonna completely shut down Hugo. But yeah, still just sack, counter sack. At this point, minute 20 left in the round. Witness EU have got to start thinking of those more drastic options to avoid the reset.
Yeah, the Europeans really need to start bumping up the aggression a little bit. Sending in solo sacks clearly isn't working. So give a double a try. Maybe just try ripping the exchange. They know they have slightly better DM. They know they can probably win an exchange and set themselves up to have a good post. But I also think the Australians are playing a little more aggressively than would be possible for the Europeans to really easily set something up here for some kind of exchange. They would have to struggle a lot to get through a door. Poppy going to be bombing forward here, landing on the point, just getting some space for his team, and it will be made successfully. Both meds playing very close to each other. That is going to be the Uber coming out from the side of Witness EU and also from Australia. The Australian Uber looks significantly better, but they're not going to be able to get any better kills in that post. There's so much damage coming out on the floor. It's going to be Otto finding Lau, Cookie finding Lucas. That's going to be down, finding Hugo as well. It is 1 player for 2, but that 1 player down on the side of Witness AU is the med, and now that transforms into 4 players down. Enrith and Silvo are too weak to hold on to anything else, so they need to get out of here quickly if they want to survive.
Yeah, great fight from Witness EU. I mean, not only avoiding the reset, which they obviously wanted to do, but securing themselves full ad now into last, or rather, 40 ad, which still plenty of ad into last. Great opportunity to score around here. And I do think that fight just came down to positioning. I mean, everyone from Witness Australia dropped down to the floor to chase the 1 kill on Tomas. And low ground is definitely not good positioning.
Yeah, you do not want to be on the low ground, especially there where it's such a scrappy fight. The entirety of Witness Australia is being trapped inside their spawn right now, though, but there's no cap time that came out of it. Batman had been cleared, so that's going to be down, coming down from it. Tomas will be able to find the pick, but it doesn't matter as the Europeans are able to just slowly pressure their way toward the point. And after 14 minutes, we have the first round on the board, the Europeans going 1-0.
That's Metalworks for you. I suppose we have seen a reset at this point, but this map can be very, very back and forth and points changing hands very quickly, but no score actually ticking. So seeing that first round, I mean, definitely comfortable for the Europeans. That's 1 fewer round that they have to worry about. But still, I mean, anything can happen as we are in this continuous overtime config.
Yeah, and with the series being 1-1, this is still anybody's game. The score is 1-0. Again, series is 1-1. So it's tied pretty often. The performances of both of these teams have been exceptionally well. And of course, we are on the 3rd map here, so it's really all coming down to this. This is a lot of good damage coming out from the Europeans, though, onto these Australian players caught in lower. And yeah, back to last they go. The Europeans are kind of just waddling their way forward and taking mid. They're not going to be able to go any further than this because mid wasn't capped, so they'll only be able to set themselves up on 2. So that means whenever they decide to actually move into last, they're either going to need to go for some kind of exchange or have Hugo and Poppy try and hit a sack.
I'm actually a little surprised that we didn't see the Euros go forward there and send just some random guy to die into the team that was down 2. Just because, I mean, keep the pace up before they have the gun. You never know what might happen. Instead, they opt to just relax and make their first pressure attempt as good as possible. They are trying to get through. A scout fully sent through the door, just running at Enrith. The bomb in, double bomb gets the force. It is a 3-man for the force, and this is where you see the 3-man really come out as a strong strategy because those 3 players makes it a lot easier to secure that force, and the team that gets forced, they feel obligated to push out a lot of the time, which interestingly, the Aussies are not doing. They are not getting cap time on 2 for a potential back cap threat. They're not trying to flip the cap on 2. They are just holding up on last and saying, you got us. We're not going to try this. We're just going to try and hold this at.
Yeah, the Australians, especially, like you said, they're fearing the back cap threat, but they're also, I think, a little afraid of the European spawners coming in to ruin their day early. But forget this, it's going to be an Uber coming out from the Europeans. The gun gets taken down. Every building is deleted. That's going to be a lot of damage coming out from the spawn from Lucas Stank. There is going to be a soldier from Australia bombing forward, but I don't think there's anything they can do. It's only 3 players alive. Lau being one of them. It's Silva as the last combat
95.
standing. Lau can't get Uber in time, and the Europeans are able to get a second round up on the board much quicker than the first.
Yeah, absolutely. And while it was actually a little close for Lau, 95% there, I think even if he gets Uber there, it's still looking quite good for EU. That being said, I mean, 3-man sack just worked out quite well there. And I don't know if I like the Australians just not even attempting to cap 2, not even attempting to set up any type of disset there. Because it feels like, again, just kind of leaving stuff on the table.
Yeah, I could see why that might be leaving stuff on the table, but I think the European spawners may have been able to help a refight that could have made the Australians crumble there. I think they were just far too committed to the defense, but going into this mid, there is 1 player down for each team. Lucas is going to be the one dead for the Europeans, so not having your demo is going to be a little rough. Ixie will find Silvo, but it's 3 players down as Otto and Hugo go down. It's all players on Australia fighting to defend Lau, who's on 30 HP, could go down to the slightest breeze, but somehow manages to survive, finds the pack. The scout behind is Ixie, and they won't be able to find Lau while they're behind, but they are able to find down.
Yeah, that mid, I mean, it was an immediate trade out. I think it was down, trading out with Lucas with a fast rollout, which immediately favors, of course, the team that, you know, loses the soldier rather than loses the demo. But Witness EU stayed in, and they tried to fight, and they kind of got burned for it. That being said, Ixie is being a real pain on the flank. So there are some things to consider here, which is the fact that they're down as scout on last, which means they are likely down the engineer, or rather their pocket scout has to play engineer. And with the pocket scout playing engineer, it might be a little more uncomfortable to build Uber, which appears to be happening with a soldier who is actually on the base jumper as well. I'm curious to see what... Oh, both soldiers are on base jumper here on Metalworks last. Not something I have seen. Ixie gets dealt with behind. And Uber's actually just even out here, which is curious. Witness Australia had ad off of mid. Lau lived, Otto did not. But I guess they thought the margins were a little too thin, and they'd rather just pressure and play evens considering Ixie was behind.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't really blame them taking a lot of risks with Ixie being behind there, but Connor's going to be going in, trying to get the sack, isn't going to be able to find anything. Sentry does go down. Down will follow up soon after, finding Ixie, but Otto is there to clean up the weak soldier. I think that's their second kill on Med this game. Tomas gets the Sentry to pick off Silvo, and they've just given up. What?
Another case of the 3-man getting the force, and the team that got forced not even attempting to push out. This is quite interesting, because, I mean, I understand, like, 2-man, you know, you don't want to peek. It's out of last. It's just 2 kills. But, like, 3 kills is a lot. It should be relatively straightforward, but there's a reason that these players are on this stage, so we'll have to see. But this, wait a minute. I don't think Australia realizes the state of Ubers at the moment. Well, they are playing this sniper. They are playing this completely evens.
Well, and I also don't think it was a 3-man that got the force, because I saw Otto in the spawn. They still had their beam out and everything, and I think they resup-binded onto a different loadout and lost their Uber. So the Australians would have no idea. There's nothing they can really do here. They're just playing to make this even, and I mean, even if they did have an idea, by the time we had mentioned it, it was so close to being even.
So with that in mind, it makes perfect sense why the Euros did not push out of last, because you might be looking at an exchange type of deal, and yeah, you don't want to try to push out when something like that happens. But Otto able to build that Uber, so not really punished for that mistake. Obviously, no one on AU would have any idea something like that happened, so yeah.
Yeah, that's just an unfortunate set of circumstances for the Europeans. If the Australians had decided, you know what, guys, let's just rip an exchange here, surely we'll win, they probably would have, because of that unfortunate resup. But Otto was able to build it out in time. I guess we stayed quiet long enough for it to not matter.
Yeah. I don't know if they can hear us or not, so like with really delicate information like that, I try to be careful with it, as we do see the double soldier sack here. Does not get the force, and it looks like neither soldier was on the man treads there, both gunboats. Hugo dying in what I can only assume is a counter sack, so at this point, 45 seconds left on the clock. Silvo is still on sniper as well, and just going for an aggro peek here as the gun's getting upgraded, so could have maybe gotten a shot off, but surely just trying to get off of sniper, which is a class that is not very good in scrappy fights, which is exactly what you're expecting to happen right now as Witness Australia try to avoid a round reset.
Yeah, Witness Australia really want to avoid the reset here. They know this is as good a chance to try and convert around as any, but with no Uber, in no way they get it in time unless they rip it early, maybe get a soldier to force auto and get them some cap time. There's no way they get this Uber in a timely enough fashion, and the Australians are pulling all the way back. This will be another stalemate. The Europeans, though, still up in the rounds, and I believe it's only 7:19 left until banny time kicks in, where the Europeans will only need to get one more win to close out the series and make their way up to fight the undefeated team. I think they haven't dropped any, well, they have dropped maps, but as it stands right now, in the group stages, they were undefeated. They have to move up to fight like a G6.
Absolutely. Looks like Luke is going to show up a little bit earlier to mid here than Enrith will. Both teams just going for spam, playing that positioning, kind of mirroring each other, all things considered. Silvo getting pretty aggro towards Choke, just trying to contain Hugo, and space is being taken by the Aussies. They have walked up to the point, Enrith on height now, and that just calls off the mid. The flank is going crazy, in fact, with Silvo and Down both behind, trying to make something happen. Silvo unable to find that medic kill. Unfortunately, Lucas died in the front lines. Poppy is behind, so we might see some aggression with that kind of idea of Poppy bombing from behind. And he's in a great position to do so, but gets spotted, so that plan is kind of moot now. However, Connor dying might open the door again for another refight onto mid from the Europeans.
Yeah, the Europeans have a good time to get in. That's going to be a nice bomb coming out from Hugo. Saves himself as well, but it won't matter. Does get taken down by Cookie, but that's a nice bomb to have. Taking down Enrith, the Australians won't have him for the Uber. Counterpop coming out from the Europeans as they try desperately to move towards their choke, but they're actually going to be recommitting. This should be a better Uber for them, but no player, I think, is really that far in for them to be able to take down. They are going to be able to find down. That will be a nice pick. That's a bomb coming in from Connor. Finds Auto at the end of it. Doesn't matter that they lost both of their soldiers. They have Uber ad if they can manage to stay alive. Oh, this isn't good.
Lau is relatively safe now. Flankers could pose a problem. It's just Lau and Enrith backing up, and that was a very scary fight for the Australians to commit to. Losing all those combat classes and those resources to get the med pick, you're not really expecting to win a sustained fight at that exact moment. You kind of need to wait for your guys to get back and take a quick little reset and a breather. But it is advantage. It's 40 advantage that they are trying to refight mid with.
Yeah, and this is a nice position to be in if you're fighting for mid, especially fighting for it back. You know they're going to have some players forward, and it's kind of hard on Metal to situate someone in a position where they can die if you come into mid. There's not a lot of good nearby spots. That's a nice push from Silvo in onto Lucas. Going to be able to find the pick. Now chasing hard as the Uber has been popped. This is pretty significant disad for the Australians now. They won't be able to cap 2, I don't think, as the Europeans slowly but surely group themselves together. They waited so long to cap second. Maybe they will be able to cap. The Europeans aren't necessarily doing too great. They lose Hugo here, and with both soldiers on the Australian side of things, only with 9 seconds on their respawn, they can come back quick.
Jesus, Enrith catching a bow there. Almost died. That would have been quite bad. Silvo finds a trade on the flank. Was really looking for a back cap there in all likelihood, but finding a trade is, it's okay. Overall, neutral, better than just getting caught outright. However, Lau only at 80%, so if the Euros are fast, which they are not, they are going to be playing this evens based on where they're positioned, how they're moving around and things will even out. Yeah, now Lau getting Uber. We're going to see how the Australians try to break this hold on second. This high bomb through alley that we saw all sorts of teams pulling out, including the Europeans in this very same map, is a very common strategy to go for. Just a nice high bomb. But it is kiteable, it is expected, so sometimes you might need to get a little creative. You do see an attempted flank shove, does not materialize in the kill. Heads up, leave there from Connor, but yeah, Aussies kind of just waiting around.
Yeah, the Aussies are, I mean, they don't really have to do anything right away. They still got 3 minutes, but now would be a good time to try and get something through. Down, moves in, but eats a lot of damage, has to back away very early, but this gives his team a lot of space to play with. It's even Ubers they could potentially push in if they take their time with it. Poppy and Tomas both go down. It's
high
a
bomb.
2-4-1. High bomb coming in. Hugo is taken care of, though. Enrith finds the sticky. Does get some good damage on Lau, but it's not enough for the drop. They are going to end up forcing, so this will be nice for the Europeans to play with. They can kind of play with their food a little bit, but Connor going in for the high bomb. Tries to curve in through the window on point, but isn't quite able to find anything. A lot of cap time, though. There's only so many players left alive. The Uber gets popped, but it doesn't matter, and that will be a round 1 for the Australians.
So there were a couple things of note there. First of all, the Uber on 2 was honestly great for AU because they got 3 kills with it, right? It doesn't really matter if auto uses or not there. Well, it would help, but it's still plenty of consolation, the 3 kills for the Uber. But on top of that, auto has consistently been kiting well into spawn on last during sacks and things like that, which has worked out to prevent sacks from working, but in this case ended up meaning he baited the point, and despite having Uber, gave up the cap in the round.
Yeah, and that's just a mistake you can't afford to be making, especially at this late a stage. We've seen that when you let the Australians get hot, they get hot, and they are able to do whatever they want, just like we're seeing here, as their scout finds a way to sneak in and take down auto. So this is a pretty huge win for the Australians, a nice shift in the momentum, especially after they got their first round. A minute 17 left until overtime kicks in, and we have to wait until one of these teams wins on one round, and we are paused.
It is a tech pause. Notably as well, there is some things happening here. I don't expect Cookie to be doing this into last. I think this might just be for information's sake, if you catch my drift. Besides that, though, look at what Otto might be doing here, a European classic. And this is something I can elaborate on further that I failed to mention as much in detail on Sunshine. This kind of play, because the disadd last crits idea is, there's a lot to it. Obviously, being able to build faster means that you have something in certain cases where you might have nothing. So I actually expect on a map like Metalworks, where it's going to take some time to get to last, that Otto might build this out, and that's going to be really nice to have. That being said, it comes with some inherent risk as well, because if the play doesn't go to plan, or if you would have otherwise built Uber if the other team's slow, which isn't going to be the case so often at this high of a level, but still, it's a possibility. Then you really don't want to be stuck on that Medigun, because it is an inferior charge to the Uber charge. On top of the fact that pushing out of last becomes so much more difficult, because even if you're able to defend the last with your crits charge, well, if your med switch is off, then what would have been, let's say, 40 ad is now close to evens, and you might just be stuck playing evens on last, which is really not what you like to do after holding the point, especially if the crits wasn't absolutely crucial to the defense.
Yeah, what Otto does here, it has to be well thought out, or at least what they try to do with this crits. They need to have their target priority down with whoever he's choosing to rip it on, which I'm assuming he'll probably rip it on Lucas. Either that or Hugo would have to be my guess. And we are going live with this next, or with the remainder of this round here, I should say, as the Australians look to get themselves set up on 2 and potentially set themselves up for a last push. I'm not sure if they know about the crits, but they should. ideally, they wouldn't. The Europeans have had this out for quite a while now, so it's really up to the Australians to rip it through. They use through that Uber. Takes a long time to find the gun, but there's so much damage happening in the spawn. The Crits is online, though. They're looking for an opportune time to pop it. It gets ripped now. They're on the Buddhist. Oh, this is brutal. Poppy and Hugo finding Silvo and Connor with the Crits getting ripped as well. The Australians are not able to break that hold, and that will be a successful defense from the Europeans, potentially leading them out to 2, where they can dry fight for the point.
Yeah, and we see another disadvantage of the Crits last here as well, which is that if you're able to defend with it but don't get the med, then it is still disad, in fact. Now, the margins here are not horrible. Auto switched off relatively quickly, but I would argue the Crits was not mandatory for that defense. I think that EU had it regardless, so they may have been in a better position here if they were on Uber. But nonetheless, does it look like Uber will be popped? Going to be a underpass Uber. Does find Ixie. There's 2 soldiers behind on the flank. If you can find those 2 kills from AU, then that's going to have big implications into last. And honestly, if they could just keep them occupied. Oh, actually, the Uber gets popped. Soldiers from behind bomb in. Lau is looking completely caught. 1v1ing Hugo, certainly favoring Hugo, but Lau hits he hits the melee, gets the kill, finds a way to survive. On the front lines, things are going well for Australia. It's a race to last. Silvo finds a cap on second. Lucas has to be the one to stop it.
There's no one able to stop it. The Australians go!
Unbelievable play, thriving in the chaos there.
Oh my goodness.
Not only finding a way to salvage the post-Uber fight on second, convert that point, and race to last, but Lau winning a 1v1 against a soldier.
Yeah, the Australians now in a very risky position. Both teams really in this unfortunate position where they are both down 1 round from the win, and both of them are fighting tooth and nail for it. I expect everything to come out now. No more hidden strats, no more of any of that. It is just going to be constant aggression from these teams. Man. Good damage coming out for both of them. It looks like players are going to be even. Down trying to take this fight. We'll have to back away. The Australians losing Lau, now losing Enrith, a very late death. This could be it. The Europeans might be able to fight their way onto 2 for free. The only thing that the Australians can hope for now is either having Connor in to force them, or having someone in to force them really early on, or maybe, just maybe, kite this Uber properly in your last. And now with Cookie dead, this is just going to be very, very rough.
Very, very difficult to say the least. And I mean, momentum swings can happen like this on a mid-fight where a hard-fought round, suddenly it just turns into a mid to last, which might be the case here. Lau only 50%. Cookie just now spawning. Too late to get into position on Pyro. Pyro very, very helpful on this last.
All of the Australians
They're chasing
are in
the soldiers.
Spawn.
Oh, they find a kill onto Connor.
The is dead. This is a bomb from Poppy. Both soldiers dead on the side of Australia. This could turn into Lau now as well, as it's a huge double! The Europeans move on to fight like a G6 in the grand finals.
Absolutely exciting game. It was down to the wire in the very end, but it did come out to be a mid to last for Witness EU, and they're able to get past this hurdle and make their spot in grand finals, which so many of us were expecting, and of course many of us were hoping to see is this matchup again of EU and G6. Of course, hate to see the Australians lose here. Again, they were kind of the Cinderella team. Fantastic upsets. They unfortunately got so close, 1 round away, but weren't able to get the 3-piece upset.
Yeah, and I mean, this kind of is I wouldn't say it's a proper send-off for the Australians, but it is far more than I think they may have bargained for. They came here, they broke the 4th place curse, they got themselves 3rd, and either way you see it, whether it's the Australians or it's the Europeans going up to fight like a G6, it is a Witness team, and it is a team that isn't from NA, which the Europeans, I think, came here dead set on making it to the grand finals. That's where they wanted to be. Whether they end up 1st or 2nd will be up in the air until that final round is played. But for the time being, I think the Europeans are going to be in very high spirits. They're going to be in a good mood, and they're going to be ready to take on like a G6 in these grands.
Yeah, and I do think that maybe not so much the Euros are gunning for the Grand so much as they just belong there, right? And that's kind of what we were seeing here with just their performance overall. Now, that being said, I do think that the Australians, and Australia in general, has always been considered a weaker region. And seeing this matchup of Witness Gaming EU, which keep in mind is not just the best team in EU, but the best team in EU by a lot. They kind of destroy EU competition in general, and having a close-fought series against the best team in Australia, which honestly have a similar relationship with their scene, does make these two scenes seem a little more comparable than we maybe once thought.
Yeah, well, that is going to do it from me and Wild Rumpus. We're going to throw it over to our analyst couch and let them get into the nitty-gritty of what happened in this series, really talk about why Europe won this series, and you'll be hearing from our Grand Finals caster soon.
What a turnaround of fortunes from the game yesterday. The Australians, they came back, they fought, they really battled as hard as they could. But it was not enough this time. They're bombing out in third, and it's Witness Gaming Europe who are going to be getting a rematch in the grand final up against G6, who they fell to before. I'm trying to get my sandblast, and Marmaloo, who has been pretty on point with these predictions so far, who actually called the 3-2 in the favour of the Europeans.
Yeah, the past two series, but did not. The Australians played that so weird. They were on their last for the first 10 minutes and did nothing. Which, you know, it doesn't take any risks leaving last, but they're not generating any opportunities. And on that note, the Europeans were also doing nothing at breaking that last hold. It was a complete stalemate of absolutely nothingness for the first 10 minutes or so, and then it started to ramp up. The Australians kind of got into form. They started making some flank plays, but in the end, the Europeans solid last mid and converted that last push.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be a slow-paced game, but definitely some dragging of the feet with trying
two stalemates in the first 10 minutes, basically.
I mean, you got to remember both these teams are probably playing with some nerves right now. They were probably playing to not be on the back foot, playing to not lose, which isn't something you probably should always be doing in a lot of the time. But when you're 1 foot in of the grand final international land stage and you're super energetic, you want to win, you just don't want to make any small errors to put you on the back foot. And, you know, the Australians ended up coming back, making it a 2-2 game, but that last mid, they got rolled back to their last, and the Europeans cleaned it up for a 3-2. It was another amazing. I can't believe how close all these series have been.
Oh, yeah. It's been an incredible land, on-stream, off-stream, and just results, surprises all over the place. But, yeah, on that note, just the Australians playing a little scared for the first half of the game, and the Europeans eventually kind of got it together, but I'm a little bit worried for this next series with them losing Viaduct, which G6 already won on, and also not looking great on Metalworks. They are going to have to play those two maps at some point in time, most likely. They can only ban Bagel.
Well, Bagel is going to, well, unless there is some shot.
That would be crazy.
Bagel, imagine if they don't ban Bagel.
I actually respect
that'd be
it.
wild.
I mean,
maybe G6 hasn't practiced it, but we also need to count the fact G6 has spent the entire morning able to prep for, maybe they didn't know who was going to make it, but they had some ideas. Well, EU didn't have any time to look at G6. They had to focus on the opponent in front of them. So they're going to be thrown right into this grand finals, which could be good or bad.
I know G6 was pre-gaming with Balls Land Cup team, so good on them, helping out the North American homies. Other than that, I mean, I don't think we're seeing Bagel. I think it'd be kind of foolish to let it through. I think EU would have a much better chance on Viaduct if we're going to see a Koth map, which we are going to at least see one potentially.
We have to, unless there's no way G6 is banning a Koth, so we're going to see one of the
like
Koth
we're going to
maps.
see it unless it's like not to like the end of the series, because again, there is no upper bracket map advantage. If you guys don't know, this is a full.
You got to win.
best
You
of
got to
five.
win 3 game maps. You have to win 3 maps.
Like there is a chance we're going to see all 5 maps. You know, it's not like an RGL that we're typically used to seeing, where you know you come from the winner side, you have an upper bracket map advantage. You do get a ban advantage. You do get some pick ban advantages, which is nice for
You just get a ban first.
I think you just get the ban first, which isn't really anything crazy.
Yeah, and there's no overlap in their bans. We could just ignore EU's ban. We already know what's going to be happening. I'm curious to see what G6 is going to get rid of in this match here, though.
Truthfully, I don't really think they mind too much what maps go
I think, their map pool, I think there's nothing too glaring. And maybe it'd be something like
Snake Water would
Snake
be the
Water,
only
something
thing
like
that I
that.
can
Yeah,
think.
that's one of the main ones. But I think it'd just be depending on what they're feeling today.
Yeah, looking at the other side of this though, I want to just have a final shout out to the Australians.
Yeah,
right?
amazing
This is the last time we've seen them. We're going to see them play in this tournament. They have really brought their all. They have this is the tournament of their life.
Yeah.
And they have really showed up. It's fantastic to see.
Yeah, the people in the crowd should give the Australians an amazing round of applause. I mean, defeating Froyo, sending Froyo home at 5th place.
Well, every
is crazy.
series they had was insane.
Yeah, I mean, they put on lights out Team Fortress 2. So, I mean, in the chat, give it up for Australia for an incredible 3rd placement. That's nothing to scoff at.
This lower bracket run is insane.
There were landmines
Froyo,
all over the place.
game 3, last second. Balls land team, same thing. This one, same thing. It's just unfortunate the kind of magic ran out. But they should be 100% proud of what they did. They broke the curse, and they definitely showed that they would have put up a fight.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a shame about the Australians. They're going to be going home in 3rd with those bronze medals. But in the grand final, it's going to be G6 against Witness Europe. And that's going to be coming up pretty shortly. So we're going to throw to a break. And when we come back, it's going to be the grand final. All the marbles, the biggest game of TF2 of the decade. Witness Gaming EU versus G6. Be right back.